Good morning. Welcome to the Leavenworth County Commission. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. I believe. Yeah, we have a moment of prayer. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll take the attendance. Mr. Smith?
Here.
I'm here.
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Culberson?
Here.
All commissioners are present and accounted for. Welcome. First item of business, we're going to have public comment this morning. I'm going to read the public comment rules. Public comments shall be allowed at the beginning of each meeting and open again at the end of the meeting after all regularly scheduled agenda items. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. However, commenters may speak for up to 5 minutes at both the beginning and end of the meeting. There should be no expectation of interaction by the Commission during this time. Everyone wishing to make comments either on items of the agenda or not on the agenda are encouraged to provide their comments in writing no later than 8 a.m. on Monday immediately preceding the meeting. These comments will be included in the agenda packet for everyone to access and review. This allows the Commission to have time to fully consider input and request follow-up if needed prior to the meeting. During times when the courthouse is closed to the general public, anyone wishing to make public comment will provide their comments in writing no later than 8 a.m. the Monday immediately preceding the meeting. The comments will be included and distributed with the normal meeting packet. When you come up for comment, please give your name and your address. So, who would like to be first in public comment? Mr. Carlskent.
Good morning, Jim Carlskent, 24542 Cantrell Road, Tonganoxie. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I'm here today to ask a very simple question. Is Leavenworth County and Tonganoxie choosing this project, or is the state policy and outside corporate pressure choosing it for us? Because when you look closely at the proposal, Project Bluestem near Tonganoxie, we see a familiar pattern playing out across America. Large developers targeting small communities with promises of growth, jobs, and opportunity, while asking those communities to shoulder enormous long-term risk. Senate Bill 98, the Santa Claus package of the 2025 Kansas legislature, changed state law specifically to attract hyper data centers. This means powerful incentives are already in motion: tax exemptions, infrastructure support, and political momentum pushing projects like this forward. But because Kansas wants data center does not automatically mean this project is right for Leavenworth County or Tonganoxie. This is not a warehouse. This is not a business park. Reports suggest Project Bluestem could demand hundreds of megawatts of electricity, powering the scale of a large city. That kind of industrial load changes transmission planning, affects regional utilities, and could reshape land for the use for generations. We still do not have full transparency. The site developer has been identified, but the ultimate end user has not been publicly named. Before the county commits roads, utilities, upgrades, zoning changes, and public resources, citizens deserve to know exactly what this project is for, what is contractually committed, and what happens if plans change. Then there's jobs. We hear about construction jobs, and that's good, but permanent employment appears modest at best. With the enormous footprint, infrastructure demand, and public concessions being discussed, we must ask, is long-term return proportional to what the city and community has given up? Then there's water and infrastructure. We are told the project may use closed-loop cooling. If so, that's positive, but trust us. But trust us is just not a plan. We need independent engineering reviews, draft contingency plans, aquifer impact studies, and full disclosure of infrastructure costs before any comments approvals move forward. And finally, Tonganoxie has a history of standing up when growth threatens community character. The community has shown that economic development is not a blank check. And so today, I ask you, do not rush, do not assume, do not approve first and ask questions later. We need to establish a moratorium. Last week I spoke with you about Prescott Balch, a 38-year veteran in the tech industry. My wife and I spoke with him on a video call. I also shared with you his website. I have seen more of his work on YouTube since last week. He is willing to speak with you as a group via video conference at no charge to help you understand what is happening here. He understands how small towns are being taken advantage of by the billion-dollar multinational tech giants. He sees mistakes that have been made in other places in small communities and that are in serious peril. A moratorium is needed urgently, require full power disclosure, require independent water and infrastructure studies, require identification of the end user, require enforcement community projections, and if these answers are not ready, please place a moratorium on approval until they are. Because once land is converted, infrastructure is built, and commitments made, there's no turning back. Growth should serve the people of Leavenworth County and Tonganoxie, not ask the people of Leavenworth County and Tonganoxie to serve it. With my 45 seconds left, I did want to share with you an article that appeared in Tech Times that Mark Zuckerberg on Meta Facebook, in a new article, stated he is working to put AI in space due to the solar energy cost. Elon Musk has stated space will become the lowest cost location for AI data centers within 2 to 3 years. Big tech is desperate for electricity. We don't have it, folks. And there will be a gentleman who will share information about how they're working to get easements already in the Leavenworth County area. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Ann Brockoff. My address is 21060 Loring Road in Linwood, Kansas. And I wanted to applaud you for looking at ways to share the cost of studies going forward. I believe that's on the agenda today. And I'm pleased that there has been a discussion of a 2-month moratorium. However, I urge you to stop and think that when we talk about data centers, we're talking about vision, and the vision for Leavenworth County and the kind of growth and community we want to have here. That vision was outlined with the development of the comprehensive plan in 2020, and also when the County Road 1 corridor was rezoned at that time, and that vision has been reaffirmed every single year through the annual review process. So every person in planning and zoning, every commissioner has reaffirmed that vision of clean and forward-thinking development, and that is something data centers are not. Opposition is growing across obviously the county, but also the state and the country to data centers because the cost of human health and environment, the cost to that, and the outsized use of community resources such as water and electricity really outweigh any tax benefit or jobs. And it's also possibly short-sighted, and Jim Carlson alluded to that, but also the Wall Street Journal has had a lot of articles about OpenAI. One of the headlines says that they missed the key target revenue. Company's CFO and board have questioned the wisdom of massive data center spending in the face of slowing growth. So even the companies that might purchase this development are thinking about, is this the best investment? And could this be short-sighted for us to invest in that as a county? Because this isn't just about Project Bluestem. Currently, as County Road 1, as that corridor is zoned, there are about 360 acres of industrial property along that corridor now. If you look at the Collier's Kansas City website, which is marketing Tailgate Ranch, they show 1,174 acres of land potentially available for industrial development. So the landowners who don't live here and a real estate developer, Cloverleaf, who has been deemed a modern-day landman, and real estate agents are putting forth a very different vision of what this area could look like. And opening the door to this project means that we could lose that entire stretch of property that has so much more potential. And I urge you to respect the long-term vision that you have repeatedly reaffirmed in the comprehensive plan, and to think creatively about what is best for the entire community as you look at ways, as those landowners within their rights, as landowners look to develop their property or to sell their property. It's up to you and to planning and zoning to really think about what's the vision for Leavenworth County, what's the long-term vision that protects resources, that protects health, that creates a resource that works for us going forward. So I am in favor of the moratorium. I'm against any rezoning that would allow these companies to come in the immediate term, because we simply don't know the costs, and it really looks like it's going to be too much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Further public comments?
Good morning. My name is Dee Carlskint, and I live at 24542 Cantrell Road. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My question to all of you is why? Why would you not place a moratorium on the Blue Stem proposal? The trend is 12 states are legislating moratoriums for the entire state. They already have many data centers within their state. Reasons for moratorium: to evaluate can they support the energy and water use, most importantly to protect their constituents, water, air, and land. Why not to the following counties where their constituents are voicing concerns and making a decision, and some are issuing moratoriums? Jackson County, Missouri; Geary, Kansas; Sedgwick, Barber, Franklin, Douglas, Wyandotte, Harvey, Saline, McPherson, Kingman, and Riley are all counties I've come across that are fighting this. Could Kansas handle that many of the negative effects that comes with data centers? Why should Kansas become one big data center? When is enough enough? Right now, according to Channel 41, there are 10 hyperscale data centers either here or in the process of being built or looked at. Does Kansas have the water, electrical power to support this many? Closer to Tonganoxie are Lawrence, Ottawa, and DeSoto. This is a lot of power and water in a small area with no regulations. Why, with the reports of undrinkable water, health risks from infrasound, diesel generators, circadian rhythm disruption for humans and animals, respiratory conditions worsen, and now cancer is being looked at because of increase in areas near data centers? This new information comes out daily. Why would these data centers be allowed in without regulations in place to protect the very people who trust you to keep their best interest in the forefront and voted for you? Why would any human being want to scar the land and bring in industry that could harm humans and animals? I would hope you would consider, is the money worth the harm it will cause? I believe there is opportunity for business that would be better fit for the county. Why not promote this area to become the Napa Valley of the Midwest? Why not promote the area at Tailgate to build a hotel, which would certainly be used after the Chiefs Stadium arrives? Why not look for industry that would serve Tonganoxie's surrounding communities? Why not promote this community as health conscious, restaurants that serve organic food? And because I only have 5 minutes, the possibilities are endless. Why did the city planners and developers not reach out to community and start working on this very thing, knowing Tailgate Ranch, once sold, would be rezoned? The tax burden did not happen because this land became available. Why have elected officials and planning and zoning employees not been the best stewards of the faith we, the constituents, have placed in their hands? You have heard my concerns backed up by the knowledgeable people in the industry. I hope you took the time to review the website's articles and studies. My career in pharmaceutical sales for 20 years with a medical background, I know what glossy sales ads are for. They're to sell. Make sure Cloverleaf is not selling you the gloss and are being transparent with Blue Stem, what Blue Stem will bring to our community. 2 points. I came across a gal by the name of Linda Stone. She's a lawyer for Microsoft. At least I think she still is. She was in a training video, and her first words to the people across the table were, I don't want a data center. You don't want a data center. And then later on said, and these data centers will bring few jobs. But she also indicated that these people had to be able to schmooze you, your level, not just you personally, into getting their constituents to want this as well. So there's your gloss. In closing, I hope your constituents are more important than the money. Consider alternative industry. Let us build Tonganoxie to build the oasis people want to come to for fun, fresh air, clean living, and a unique place to live and visit. Vote to place a moratorium on Blue Stem Project and put the people before the money for now. Your legacy will be your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Further public comments?
My name's Kerry Holton, and I'm a Leavenworth County lifelong resident. I live on 206th Street, well, also known as County Road 25.
Give your address, please.
Say what?
Address.
The address?
Your address, yes.
17312 206th Street,
Thank you.
Tonganoxie, Kansas. We've had this little piece of paper stuck in the door jamb of the old farmstead a few days ago. And this fella, I'm a senior right-of-way agent for Percheron, a land service company. Cloverleaf Infrastructure, a real estate developer specializing in data centers, has engaged my company to assist their discussions with landowners. Cloverleaf's developing a power line to do with the electrical grid. And they would like to have an easement across this 160 acres of ground, which is, well, the closest address I can give you is 198th Street and Honey Creek Road. It's 160 acres of farm ground, half of it's pasture, the other half native grass, prairie pasture, by the way, a little left on the planet. The other half is a short 40 acres farm ground, hay ground, terraces, what have you, a little stream going through it. And they want an easement on 35 point yada yada acres. Okay, well, a short 40, that's 25% of 160 to get simple math. So I asked the fella, okay, here's the map. Where's it going? Oh, I don't know. Now that's a hell of an answer, isn't it? I don't know. So I asked, okay, who do you work for? Well, I work for this outfit, and they work for Cloverleaf. And who's Cloverleaf working for? Well, they're working for Blue Stem. Who's Blue Stem working for? Did you know who the end user of this monstrosity is going to be? Whose pocket is the money going in? And I saw this estimate tax revenue distribution estimates. Well, the weather report is an estimate every day. And there's an estimate that is not on here, and I've yet to hear it be discussed. Is there anybody got an estimate of the revenue that one of these monsters generates for big tech? Anybody? I take that as a no, 5-0. I think that's the figure you ought to be working on. And why did Kansas or any other state have to literally hand them the farm to show up? They can afford to pay their bills. You don't have to give them nothing. If it's a worthy project, it'll fly. We heard this song and dance a few years ago up there at this very commission. Had to do with Tyson. And that was a BS deal too. We got the good news, Tonganoxie, when a Tyson reefer trailer pulls in, and here's Governor Brownback, our representative. He got a text. You better go to Tonganoxie. The governor's going to be there. Well, what for? He didn't know. And the local Foghorn Leghorn Committee, they knew everything. And the commissioners, well, we signed an NDA. We can't say a damn thing. Well, go spine. And they dumped that in the lap of Tonganoxie. And it's a done deal. We're going to be moving dirt in just a few months, weeks maybe. Well, the reaction was somewhat different. Yeah, it was BS, like hell. And Carl Skent, Mr. Jim Carl Skent, did his best. He stood up for his constituents and was sawed off the knees politically by the Republican hierarchy of the Kansas state and the nation probably for doing it. And Mr. Dove, you were there too at Tonganoxie that night at City Park, and you just flat lied to the community.
Excuse me?
You did. Oh, I'm going to try to stop this.
Excuse me.
You did.
Sir.
I heard it, Willie.
Okay. Well, you directly.
I didn't record it.
So I'm asking what misinformation or lie that you heard from me? Could you?
Oh, we're going to do our best to stop this. You did not.
I'm going to call this. We're not going to get into personalities. And
It's not a personality.
Let's just not get. I don't want to get into that kind of a debate between.
Well,
I don't want to make it personal. It's the issues.
Is a real surprise.
Well, I never said that. In fact, I am the one that asked for a town hall for individuals to say what they wanted to have said.
Well, they said what
and
they
when
wanted to
I
say.
went to Nashville, to Tennessee, and asked them what was the problem, and they said that there was a smell. When I went to Tennessee, there was no smell. Mm-hmm. That was the end of my presentation because that comment was booed by the audience. I was done. So there was nothing else that you heard me say other than there was no smell. It was done. Thank you.
So just a reminder for the audience.
Who's researching this?
Just a reminder for the audience. I want to keep it on the issues. I don't want to make it. Please don't make things personal.
Thank you.
I appreciate this, but let's not.
Well, I thought this was kind of personal too. You know, you don't sleep
I understand,
well
sir.
if you get this.
I understand what you're saying.
For the research of this stuff, these commissioners, legislators should travel to these communities that have these things and get in the footprint of the noise that never goes away. 24/7. People can't sleep in their houses. It disturbs schools. Maybe we should record that and pipe it in.
I think we are trying to get to the bottom of what all the issues are, and I think that's what this is about. I appreciate your comments, so thank you, sir.
Harlan Wickstrom, 23947 Chieftain Road. My main issue with this, and I apologize, we're angry, we're on edge. But we're worried that you guys are being charmed by people whose job it is to charm people. These are people that their job is to get this to the finish line. They're not going to implement any of these things. They're not going to sign the papers. They are not going to run the data center. Their job is to set up the data center. Their job is to tell you what you want to hear. So, closed loop systems, is anyone actually implementing a closed loop system at this time? No, it's an idea. Noise, is anyone actually making a quiet data center? No. These things, they change everything about the land. They ruin the land. They poison the land. So, just if you've made some kind of handshake deal or gentleman's agreement, it's okay, you can break it because you know what? You don't have all the information. You don't have all the information. We don't have the information. There's a complete lack of transparency. Later in the same session, you're going to vote on something from Meadowlark for future spending that's actually Bluestem. I mean, Cloverleaf. I mean, Percheron. So, that's a bad look. Please, just consider a moratorium. Let's slow down. Let's get some ideas. Let's just slow the roll. That's what we're here asking for you to do today. Please listen to us. I mean, the idea of who can sell their land for what use, that argument, that was a month ago. And now, all you have to do your research is watch the news. There are daily, every single day, there's a national story about data centers and things that are going desperately wrong. So, please, we're just asking you, we don't want this. We don't want this. Aaron Bellew stood in this room and said, if you guys don't want us, we don't want to be someplace that doesn't want us. So that's why we're here. We're saying, we don't want this. We don't. Please. And as far as $14 billion or $1 million, they're actually getting billions of dollars that hopefully someday they'll have to spend in reparations. They're saving money through SB 98. Hopefully they'll be able to spend that money putting the land back. And, we're not going to have any property values. We're not going to be able to even sell our land to leave if this happens. So, just please. I mean, I'll beg you. I will. Thanks.
Further public comment. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is McKinley Fallon. I live at 111 Bradley Court, Tonganoxie, Kansas. Commissioners, thank you. Many of these men and women have made and will make many fine points regarding this issue, so let me just say this. I want to let the record show that I'm opposed to the construction of the proposed data center. I want to make the point that though I may be one of, if not the youngest person here, I'm not the only young resident of Tonganoxie that is opposed to this data center. Most of us have full-time jobs and are unable to attend meetings at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. My wife and I currently rent where we live and are looking to buy a house in Tonganoxie soon. We will not be purchasing a house in Tonganoxie if the data center is built. I believe this data center would be detrimental to Tonganoxie, and I don't want to see my city become an industrial zone. I am morally opposed to the data center construction. Not enough is known about data centers to know the long-term economical, ecological, and environmental impacts they have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Public comment. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Denise McCullough, 23059 D-Hop Drive. I live about a mile west of the north end of Tailgate Ranch. So, I'm not a lifelong resident of Leavenworth County, but I've always loved Tonganoxie. My aunt and uncle have a farm north of Tonganoxie, and summer times were great when I could go spend time at the farm in Tonganoxie. And my husband is a lifelong resident. He grew up in Linwood, and in our early 20s, we decided to buy a house. And of course, we looked first place Tonganoxie, and we found our ground, 20 acres, and it was paradise to us. It still is. We raised 2 sons here. Sorry, I'm a bit emotional.
That's all right. Go right ahead.
We've raised our 2 sons here. They love Tonganoxie. I've spent the last few weeks talking to friends, neighbors. Nobody wants this. I've talked to one person who said he's going to benefit because he works for the data industry, but most people don't want this. We want the rural feel of the land. We want the country. We want businesses. It's not that we don't want businesses. We just want the right businesses in Tonganoxie. If one data center comes in, more are coming. This will forever change Leavenworth County, and we don't want it. And I also have heard other people say they're going to sell their house. If this data center comes in, they're selling their house. And we've thought about it too, but then we're so close to there, are we going to be able to sell our house? I also want to read this to you. The Kansas Farmers Union put out a statement on data centers last month. Since 1907, Kansas Farmers Union has worked to protect and enhance the economic interests and quality of life for family farmers, ranchers, and their communities. The moral and ethical decisions made by individuals and governments have an impact on our daily lives and on the lives of future generations. Farmers Union policy strives to ensure those decisions maintain a just and ethical basis. Our policy also addresses the use of our natural resources and environment with the same fervor. With that in mind, the Kansas Farmers Union Board of Directors unequivocally supports National Farmer Union's 2026 policy and action statement on data centers, which calls for local oversight over data center development proposals, requiring an affirmative vote from impacted voters prior to any approval or permitting. The policy opposes the development of data centers that increase local electricity rates, cause brownouts, contaminate or deplete water supplies, or exacerbate contamination of water supplies. And here's the one that we fall under: the siting of data centers on protected soils. That's prime farmland. It shouldn't be destroyed by a data center. Subsidies or tax credit breaks for construction and operation of data centers, and non-disclosure agreements regarding data centers. Also, my neighbors, Russ and Jane Dent, they are not able to be here this morning, but they wanted me to share this with you. It's an article, and Russ is trying to make copies and get up here to give everyone a copy of this, but I'll give you this copy too. Environmental Health Sciences put out this article. Is it safe to live near a data center? EMF radiation risk explained. Data centers require massive electrical infrastructure to operate. This means new high voltage power lines and substations, industrial facilities built close to homes and schools that will increase electromagnetic field exposure to people. Research links this type of EMF exposure to childhood leukemia, and you know how close our elementary and middle schools will be to this data center, and other serious health and environmental impacts. However, the U.S. government lacks safety regulations to protect against the health effects from exposure to EMFs from power lines and electrical infrastructure. And there's just one more. Non-iodizing EMFs have been linked to credible, peer-reviewed, published scientific studies to childhood leukemia, central nervous system tumors, brain cancer, and I have a son who fought a brain tumor, so that touches close to home. Breast cancer, Alzheimer's disease, cognitive dysfunction, miscarriage, ADHD, obesity, asthma, oxidative stress, free radical formation, and DNA damage. Hundreds of scientists have called for risk mitigation measures to reduce public exposure to non-ionizing EMFs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Groff. I live at 20757 Stillwell Road in Linwood. I want to thank you for your call to serve our community. I appreciate it. Data centers are a uniquely burdensome land use that impose disproportionate infrastructure, environmental, and community costs relative to their local benefit, and because of that, they should be restricted to areas specifically designed to absorb those impacts. It's an opportunity for a community, but not a good choice. A moratorium is necessary to do a lot more investigation. It causes massive grid impact with low local return. A single hyperscale data center can pull as much power as tens of thousands of homes. That means new substations, transmission upgrades, real grid strain. What do you get in return? Very few long-term jobs and limited local economic activity. So the city takes on an infrastructure risk without proportional community benefit. The water consumption and cooling strain, that's another huge issue. A lot of these facilities rely on evaporative cooling. We're talking millions of gallons of water per year. In a state that deals with drought cycles, that matters. You're allocating scarce water resources to a low employment industrial use instead of for housing or diversified economic growth. There is a noise and constant industrial presence. It's not an occasional activity. It's a 24/7 baseline hum where cooling systems, generator testing, constant operation. It's effectively heavy industrial use, and it's not compatible with residential or mixed-use environments. It's land use inefficiency. These are massive windowless buildings with no foot traffic, no street-level activity, no community integration. Compare that to housing and retail offices. The data center would sterilize valuable urban land that could support housing, economic diversity, and real community activity. Cities don't have unlimited power capacity, water capacity, land. Every megawatt and acre used by a data center is something you can't use for housing, local business, or higher employment industries. Even if it's legal, it can still be wrong, a wrong allocation of limited city resources. So we're talking about zoning compatibility, infrastructure proportionality, public welfare. We can justify these restrictions because of the utility strain, the water usage, noise, and land use planning. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and praying for you that you would make the right choice to represent the communities that we all live in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Further public comment. Mr. Zach.
Hi, Zach Pastora. I live at 22801 Golden Road in Linwood, Kansas, and great to be before you again. You heard from me about a month and a half ago when we had our work session on data centers, so great to be before you. A couple things. My main topic for my comment is how we should and could do business here in Leavenworth County from my perspective. But before I begin, as always, I want to thank you for your public service, for representing your constituents, for thinking long and hard about how we want our county to prosper, and in respecting our countywide vision and comprehensive plan to do that. So thank you for your service. I don't think it gets said enough because you deal with difficult issues all the time, including one before you, in my opinion, on the data center issue. And I was director of the Kansas statewide organization, the Sierra Club Environmental Organization. We're getting data center prospects knocking on communities' doors across the state. Just last week, I heard from everywhere from Garden City to Gardner, Kansas, and I think a big part of it was this big tax giveaway up to $250 million in sales tax exemption for data centers, and now local governments and communities are facing the brunt of that and to figure out, well, is this right for our community? And actually, I think, as comments were mentioned, kind of getting told what's best for their community as opposed to hearing from the community themselves. Since that month and a half of speaking before you, we talked about how we could come up with a framework for how this industry could potentially operate in our county based on what might fit our community's needs. And I haven't heard much progress on that from either the company's standpoint or from the governmental standpoint. So maybe that's a work in progress I'm unaware of, but in that month and a half, we've had community needs on data centers. Just 2 Sundays ago, we had about 150 residents from Tonganoxie area get together on a rainy Sunday in the afternoon to talk with each other, answer questions about a proposed data center and how it might transform the community, largely for the worse if you heard from the community members and leaders on that. So, and meanwhile, we haven't had such a community meeting from the developer, from the from a company that might want to do business here. And so we haven't had that transparent conversation from the business side of things to community residents themselves in group. And that was a big reason, in my view, why Tyson failed. It's not a good way of doing business. And here's the alternative, I'll say. Just last week, Wyandotte County, who had previously opposed data centers, actually gave the permit for what will be the state's largest, newest battery energy storage operation. And a company by the name of Accelergen had multiple meetings, including one with community stakeholders last September, and then multiple community town halls to answer questions in an open forum to talk about what their project would be. And they had concerned residents in opposition initially, and they heard the concerns. They accommodated the concerns. They developed a community benefits package. They said, "Hey, we'll move the site over here because it's too close to the neighbors over here." And so I'll just give you this example of, hey, here's a developer that wants to do business, in my view, the right way, to hear the community, to talk with the community about what they're hoping to do, to get community buy-in. And that's what they did. Community groups, community residents, they said, okay, they've worked really hard to appease our concerns. They're going to offer $27 million in tax benefit to the county. It's a good business proposition, and they've accommodated our environmental concerns, our rural residential concerns, and 8-2 last week, Wyandotte County Commission voted in favor of this battery energy storage project. Accelergen is presented to you all. They have a sister project here in Leavenworth County. This is an example of low impact business development. It'll help the tax base, but not provide the same sort of harm that a big hyperscale data center might provide. And ultimately, in my view, it's a better way of doing business in the county. So thank you for hearing me out. I hope you consider this, and I don't think it's improper to adopt a moratorium to develop regulations for a data center in the meantime.
Thank you.
Further public comment?
Go ahead, neighbor.
No, you go. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Hope y'all are fine. My name is Lisa Thorne. I live at 15912 206th Street, Tonganoxie. And one thing I've been thinking about a lot is I own a barn on a farm at 18490 Leavenworth Road. It's also Tonganoxie zip code. There's a barn that my husband, Jim Thorne, and I have been renovating. And we brought it up to the point from where it was falling in to now we have our family Christmas and Thanksgiving dinners in the barn. It's a joyful place. It will hold about 75 people. A couple of years ago, I decided to apply for a special use permit to have it be an event facility because, well, people love it. They go up there and it's just a lot of fun. And they sent me home saying I need to do a few things to make it safe. They wanted me to hire an architect, which I will do, and to consult the state fire marshal and add doorways to make it safe for the public. And at that point, when I gather my resources and do it, I will try again for a special use permit. I looked up this morning the Planning and Zoning Mission Statement. It exists to create and maintain a desirable quality of life for all residents, protect our common environments, and to promote public health, safety, and welfare. Now I ask you, my little barn that is 40 feet by 50 feet did not pass the test. How in the world could we expect a massive data center to pass any kind of test to protect our common environments and to promote public health, safety, and welfare? It is my hope that not only will we have a moratorium on this project, but that it'll be kicked out of the ballpark. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Commissioners, a very good morning to you. My name is Wally Pilot. I live at 16927 206th Street in Tonganoxie. This microphone is going to be way too low for me to use, so I'm just going to talk to you this way. I've been an electrical engineer for 45 years, and I'd love to really kind of sit in front of you and talk to you about the dangers of the power lines, EMF. These people are absolutely correct, 100%. There's decades of evidence talking about the harms that power lines cause. But that's not what I want to talk to you about today. I want to give you a little bit of an engineering lesson. Okay, large data centers, it's already seen, is a failed business proposition. Companies are beginning to realize that there's absolutely an area of diminishing returns when you put a data center in that's as large as the ones that are being proposed in here. They just don't support it. What the industry is really moving towards is what we call distributed computing. You don't need to have a gigawatt data center. You could have 10, 100 megawatt data centers. We've got technology today that networks these together. If any of you ever had take your personal computers and let it do cryptocurrency, overnight, you know that distributed computing is definitely a viable thing. And when you distribute the computers to small areas that are maybe the size of a dentist's office, something like that, you don't have the environmental impacts on these things that you will with these huge data centers that will become obsolete. And why they will become obsolete is my engineering lesson for you today. It's something called Moore's Law. And I have seen this since 1965 is really when it was first came about. And what it says is that in electronics, basically, which is what these centers are, every 2 years, technology doubles, costs half in there. If I hold a microchip in my hand right now that's got a million transistors in it, let's say, to make this graphical GPU work, 2 years from now, you're going to put 2 million transistors in there. 4 years from now, it's going to be 4 million, and 6 years from now, it's going to be 8 million, at an eighth of the cost. That is really what drives the data centers now to start thinking small. We actually call them meek centers. It's just kind of the opposite of these big centers. And if you were to put a moratorium in here for, let's say, 6 years, I'd like to see no data center at all. But even 6 years from now, the technology is going to be so advanced that we won't need data centers this large. They're going to be much smaller footprint, higher efficiency. That's the way that we really should be moving with this. And that's really all the comments that I've got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further public comment.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Richard Paz, 17715 Michaels Road.
Morning.
Commissioner Reed, my district.
Good morning.
Commissioner. Good to see you. My interest in the data center question was based upon the tax politics. Okay? You've heard about SB 98, and also you're going to hear numbers coming from Cloverleaf, so consider the source, that they're going to pour all this property tax funding here. But you have to look at both sides of the ledger. Okay? So, again, back to Arlen's comment, don't be charmed. Consider the source, and my deepest concern is we need to be doing that. The commission, the staff, the appraiser needs to be in on that, not the developer. There's a inherent conflict of interest in that. So when you hear a number like $350 million of property tax over 30 years, look at the whole ledger. SB 98, we've run the numbers. A conservative estimate is they are going to say, the developer and the person who comes after them, $7.5 billion on the low end, up to $20.3 billion on the high end. So a conservative middle road estimate is $14.1 billion, which essentially becomes profit. That's how it works. A tax exemption or tax expenditure has the same function as a direct welfare payment. It decreases the fiscal budget of the entities, and it's money that could be used to fully fund schools, get us Medicaid for all those good things for the people. Pave roads. I listened to your discussion about the gravel roads, highly contentious. We don't even have the money to do what we're supposed to be doing. So again, don't be beguiled by these numbers thrown around. And also, are they basing it on Virginia law or Kansas law? I've seen this Department of Commerce Mythbusters guide, and we did our own analysis to counter the myth-busting guide. And again, they're using things out of context. Is it based upon Kansas law? And what we find out in 2006, computer equipment is not taxed. But if you had the unfortunate timing of incorporating yourself before 2006, you're still taxed. We should help those people. This affects small businesses too. We are not doing enough for them too. So we let these billionaire conglomerates take full advantage of it. And we heard here from the Chief Development Officer, we would not even be here were it not for this. And this is happening across the country. And again, that shift of revenue essentially goes from the state, which would use it on our behalf, to the corporations. And that is killing us. This is why our property taxes never change, folks. Because there's been a consternation in the legislature itself. Adam Smith, the chair of the House Taxation Committee, and he's kind of throwing things back to Mr. Masterson in the Senate. The reasons why we couldn't do that is because we already gave away $10.7 billion, and now we're going to give upwards of $20.3 billion away to folks who don't need the tax break. We've talked about technology. Apple has been estimated at having $1 trillion in cash reserves. They're not participating in this data center gold rush, and you got to wonder why. They have data centers, but not the ones we're talking about now, because their model is, which we could do today, is to do this compute here locally at the client level, which to me is more secure because you're not putting all your money into a giant data center. When I visited one in Smithville, it reminded me, and I'm sorry about my military background, it reminded me of Baghdad in the Green Zone. High Heskel walls and all that, because they're prepared, because if they get hit, you knock out a whole bunch of services everywhere. But say if the county here or a business has their own local, and the compute is done here, to me it's more secure. It's probably cheaper overall. But that exists today. We talked about space. We talked about, Wally talked about the different technologies. But we're doing that today. Apple, again, they're putting their money into people and where you can do the compute. And that's what's driving the data center rush, is the compute power, and the power and the water needed for that is driving this. But it's not the only model. And also, speaking of different models of development, Vesper, Commissioner Reed, hey, those guys came to our township 3 years ahead of anything. They said they wanted to hear our input. I said, really? And I asked the pointed question, are you taking any tax breaks and this and that, any tax exemption? And no, we believe in free markets. I said, am I still in Kansas? It's amazing. The state should not be intervening in this, but certainly folks had the money to do that, and that's the difference. We have a two-tier tax system, one for the wealthy and then one for the rest of us. And that needs to stop. But we need to do our due diligence. We need to do the moratorium so we can do that work, not Cloverleaf. They're going to charm us, and they're good at it, but we need to do our own work on behalf of the people. Thank you.
Mr. Paz.
Go ahead.
Good morning again. Thank you. I
Mr.
wanted
Reed.
to ask you, who is the we? You said we did our own analysis.
Well, me and a few others, we run this by, and also we've talked about SB 98 here. And that's what drove my initial interest in this, because the legislature is supposed to do fiscal notes, but as you know, this was a gut-and-go bill at the last minute. SB 51 was the original bill, which was taken and put into a license plate bill, and the fiscal note never transferred over to 98, was never completed. And when you run the analysis, the biggest expense probably for a data center industry is the turnover of chips, servers, and all that. That's where they're seeing these enormous savings. But usually on a fiscal note, they talk about, well, how much is it costing the state? And they didn't even look at that. And I can show you the committee conference reports which state that. SB 51's fiscal note did not carry forward.
Let's get on each other's calendar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
But back to Vesper, and disclaimer, I own one of those fancy lithium-ion battery cars, so I understand the risks in there, but I put it in the garage. But the other thing about Vesper, which was very refreshing, they acknowledged the risk and the change of technology from the giant fires, because I know some people in my township don't like it, and
Right.
you know who I'm talking about. They went over that, weren't trying to charm us and say, hey, we're just telling you that it's approved, and this is the cost, and no, we are going to probably provide more because their business model is based on arbitrage of power, and they're happy with that. They don't require a high priority to give us, you know, tax exemptions. The
Right.
only issue is reclamation, which has been talked here. That's something I would like to talk to you about because at a certain point they'll have to move it. But a reclamation bond, not so sure how that works, and I don't know if that cost is imposed. But again, back to the larger question, the costs that are imposed on a rural community, which is gorgeous. I retired here in 2017 out of Hawaii. Yeah, that's a nice place too. But here, this place is like the Garden of Eden, folks. And we all know, we have experience. Once you lose it, it's gone forever. And we're never getting it back. And who's paying for that?
Thank you.
So, I get it. This document, as far as I can, when I look at it, I can't tell whether this is including personal property being exempted or
Right.
not.
Right.
Could you discern that?
Well, I couldn't. It doesn't say. It's for illustrative purposes only. It doesn't cite. And again, for our analysis, we cite the statutes that say, hey, what gets taxed? So you can't tell from that document. We need to do that.
So we can be comparing apples to
Yes. So if they're saying their personal property or the computers and servers are going to get taxed, that's money that we're never going to see because Kansas does not tax it. That's cool. That's great. Great for us, unless you incorporate it before 2006. However, if it's including that, we don't know. We can't tell. But anyway, that's our work to do, or the government's work to do, not a interested developer. And nor should
so all of these questions are questions that have yet to be answered
absolutely.
before we would move
Yes,
ahead.
sir. And that's why I think you've got the sense of that is we need to slow down and get those answers and not take someone's word for it whose interest is to push through this project. It's very obvious to see, at least from a concerned citizen's point or someone who studies the tax politics, if you will. And since the legislature, I'll be honest, since they failed to do that, we're stuck with this. And that's how we get rolled over on the local area, because in the good old days, additional monies, LVTR, would come through the state. But now that's not available now is because we gave it all away up front.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Paz. You just said something that I think that should be repeated again. And that is that the legislature has continually done this for a number of years through different leaderships,
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes,
okay.
sir.
So if we continue to vote the same people in again and again and again, what results are we going to get? The same results are going to happen.
Yes,
so my
So this
point
is-
here is that
Yes.
the property tax that you're speaking of, okay, I spoke out against that years ago, and when I left legislature, then. So, if this continues to happen, where do you see it going if we keep electing the same individuals who have been there for years, and we have been servicing those individuals for over 16 years? Do you see it changing?
No, sir. We'll still be having events like this. But I would note, across the nation and here in Kansas, you're seeing the pushback. And you guys shouldn't necessarily be the brunt of our anger.
But that's where it looks like.
Right, it does.
Is
So
that we're the ones that are taking it because the state has done something that, in my opinion, they cannot take back because it's already done with those present electors.
So unfortunately, it usually leads to a catastrophic event or something that's there that we realize is too late. And then we do not want to go there. But your point, I think, is, we need to vote differently for folks who are echoing these concerns because they're real and they're having effects now and they're going to only get worse. So for the folks listening on the video, I would hope you understand that because there are folks who understand this problem. I know Senator Culbertson says the county is slowly being bankrupted, and he's essentially correct through other means. So, yes, vote for the folks who are talking these, who are knowledgeable about this, but also who are willing to stick their neck out and go against party lines and say, there is another way. And by the way, the people already know this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional public comment. Come on down. Is that going to be it? All right. We will move on to, let's see, do we have a clerk's report? No clerk's report today? Okay. Then we're going to have a proclamation on mental health. Actually, I get ahead of myself. Administrative business. Did you have anything for administrative business? Mr. Lawfrey. Administrative business. I just have one thing. I did want to read this for my administrative business. It's in the Tonganoxie Mirror today, but this represents my views. The data center debate, cowboy code, not everything is for sale. The debate over data centers has recently devolved into a conversation about property taxes, with Cloverleaf, the third-party broker promoting the nearly 1,000-acre mega data center, dangling the carrot of property taxes and paying for road improvements and community benefits. The carrot being dangled seems akin to the community benefits that Tyson offered when they tried to bring a transformational project into our community nearly half a generation ago. Remember, Tyson promised community funding, small farmers would have revenue sources, and property taxes would be greatly reduced. This with a very rushed process and a community that felt blindsided by a lack of good information. Still in the dark. The problem for the public and for the local government leaders is that we are still largely in the dark. The Cloverleaf lobbyists flew in from Arizona and Texas last week to meet with local government leaders while still remaining coy about their exact proposal. Cloverleaf will not name which group of high-tech billionaires will be behind the mega data center campus during the nearly 6-hour work session held by the county commission. The Cloverleaf representative indicated that the data center would use north of 600 megawatts of electricity. In a recent Lawrence Journal World article, Aaron Ballou, the Cloverleaf representative, was quoted as saying that the proposed mega data center would actually consume 1.2 to 1.5 gigawatts of electricity, and that is enough electricity to power 1.5 to 3 million homes. After reading the quote, I asked county staff to reach out to Cloverleaf for an answer to what their actual request to Evergy was. The report back from Cloverleaf is that they requested up to 1.2 gigawatts. That would make this one of the largest mega data centers in the region. The questions are still swirling in the air without any answers. The billionaires, their company, with the proverbial curtain, have not yet been revealed. The actual outlines of the proposal has not been brought forward. The specifics of the water supply proposal, electricity grid management, and the amount of pollution from the on-site diesel generators. These issues, along with a host of others, is why I have called for a slower, more deliberate approach. Let's adopt a moratorium or a pause until this mega data center can be evaluated. We can have an opportunity to get additional answers. The Commission has agreed to consider this moratorium proposal at today's meeting in addition to reviewing a first round of proposed regulations. I have been requesting this moratorium for weeks, and I'm very thankful that my fellow commissioners have agreed to bring it forward for consideration. Finally, just last week, my son Chad and his wife, Logan, delivered my first grandson, Michael Jet Stephen. While my mother and I were waiting for the delivery, we attended the Cowboy Hall of Fame and Museum in Oklahoma City. As part of the exhibits, there is a display about the Cowboy Code. I believe one particular code might apply to this situation of this mega data center proposal in Tonganoxie. According to what I am hearing from my constituents, this is, remember, not everything is for sale. We have to think long and hard before a transformational project like this is allowed to change Tonganoxie forever. Please do not hesitate to reach out to my office if you'd like a copy of my survey, or send me an email at mstephen@littlecounty.gov. I I felt like that I needed to present that.
I did have something.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mike. I'm sorry, folks, I forgot something. I'd like to turn it to a little more happier for at least 2 minutes. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the Leavenworth Riverfront Community Center, there's a lady by the name of Iris Arnold that we're going to be honoring. Iris started the Leavenworth, Kansas Mission Food Pantry 16 years ago on her own. This is a place where hope is restored, and because of her leadership and commitment, the Leavenworth Mission Food Pantry is the largest food pantry that I know of in Leavenworth County. This has helped many families facing hunger. Her work has not only helped feed the community, but also restore dignity and compassion. For this, I'd like to recognize and honor her, and Commissioner Dove and I would go on. Anybody else is more than welcome to attend. Again, this is at 6 p.m. tomorrow at the Riverfront Community Center. It came at the last minute, and I hate to hurry, but she's moving, and I just found out about it yesterday. So if y'all have a chance to come down there, or anybody watching, please stop by and have a chat and talk with her. That's all I have, Chairman.
And where's that being held at?
Riverfront.
Riverfront, okay.
Yeah, 6 p.m.
So, administrative business, Commissioner Dove.
Don't have anything?
Mr. Reed.
Just one comment from my Google degree. The Edged Energy Data Center opened in December of 2024. In KC, it reportedly focuses on a closed-loop waterless cooling system for operation. That's all for me.
Mr. Bowles. All right, we'll move on to the proclamations. We have a mental health awareness. We have a couple of proclamations.
Certainly.
You can help me with that. Okay, Mental Health Awareness Month. Proclamation declaring May as Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas in Leavenworth County, Kansas, May 26th is proclaimed as Mental Health Awareness Month. This month is dedicated to raising awareness about mental health issues and promoting well-being. The national theme for 2026, More Good Days Together, encourages us all to reflect on what a good day looks like, both for ourselves and for our communities. Whereas mental health awareness plays a crucial role in fostering a more compassionate and understanding society where individuals feel empowered to seek help for their mental well-being. Whereas 1 in 5 adults experience serious mental illness each year, while 1 in 5 adolescents report anxiety and depression symptoms. Whereas the Guidance Center in Leavenworth County, Kansas, has opened the Guiding Lights Crisis Stabilization Center, providing a flexible, secure, and structured treatment space to meet the varying mental health and substance disorder needs. Whereas there are many ways to support Mental Health Awareness Month, one of which is to lead by example and prioritize your own mental health, promoting mental well-being and self-care practices, and by reducing stigma and encouraging open conversations and fostering acceptance and building solidarity and reducing isolation for those facing mental health challenges. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed that the Leavenworth Board of Commissioners declares May as Mental Health Awareness Month in Leavenworth County to highlight the critical role of the county in providing crucial behavioral health services and resources to its residents, and be it further proclaimed, the Leavenworth Board of County Commissioners continues its commitment to partner with the community members to ensure that all mental health services are accessible and valuable for all residents.
Very good.
And we also have a proclamation, and Commissioner Smith will read it.
Commissioner Stevens.
Oh.
I do believe that Bess with the Guidance Center is here.
Oh, come on down.
Stevie's here. I didn't see Stevie. Sorry, yeah.
We'd like you to tell, we got a good audience here. Tell them how long this has been going and what's happening. Just in 2 minutes.
I was not expecting this. Appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Stevie Durkin. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Guidance Center. So we have been around since 1937. We started in Atchison County, and in the 60s, Leavenworth County came on board, as well as Jefferson County. I've got some team members here as well. Maria Lopin-Solo, sorry to put you on the spot, if you could stand up. Rachel Wolf, Sam Adams, and then Bess Bonowitz. Really wanted to take an opportunity to recognize the work of our team. We have transitioned to a CCBHC in addition to a community mental health center. We're continuing to try to get the word out, so please follow us, reach out to us if there's any questions that we have. We know that mental health
and recovery services needs continue to increase. We appreciate the support and the collaboration, specifically in Leavenworth County. So we're always here to be a collaborative partner, to just get people access to the care that they need. So I don't know how I'm doing on time. Wasn't expecting that, but if there are any questions.
You did really good, really
Thank
good.
you. Appreciate that.
Do the commissioners have questions? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you for coming up for us. Some time ago, I'd asked that if the board would contact the administrator here, and we would have you come up and do a work session. And has that been followed through?
So we have a meeting next week. So this is my way of, we're working on this. So there was a little bit of miscommunication on the Mental Health Advisory Council on kind of what our approach is there. We have a meeting next week or the week following to identify what that plan is going to look like, to really not just learn about the guidance center, but learn about all the efforts that are being done by organizations throughout the county. So we will be back in touch, certainly, with that information. I know Mark reached out. So we appreciate that opportunity. We will definitely take you up on that. We just need to get organized on what that looks like.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Now we have a proclamation on Police Week proclamation, and Mr. Smith appropriately is going to read that.
Thanks, Mike. After serving 21 years as a police officer, it's my honor to read this. And we got a sheriff up back there. National Police Week. To all citizens of Leavenworth County, to recognize National Police Week 2026 and honor the service and sacrifice of those enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including dedicated members of the Leavenworth County Sheriff's Office. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, there are currently more than 24,000 law enforcement officers in the United States who made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty, including 4 members of the Leavenworth County Sheriff's Office. And whereas the dedicated men and women who have chosen law enforcement as a career often face unknown or extraordinary risks and dangers of preserving our freedom and security, and whereas these women and men are mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, daughters and sons, and we give gratitude to their families supporting them in their careers. And whereas we wish to give everyone an opportunity to appreciate and thank the men and women of the Leavenworth County Sheriff's Office who dedicated their lives to public service. Whereas May 15th is designated as Police Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and the families of U.S. flags should be flown and have met. Now, therefore, it be resolved that we were in Leavenworth County, Board of County Commissioners do hereby proclaim May 10th to the 16th, 2026 to be National Police Week in Leavenworth County and urge all citizens to observe this. Signed by Chairman Mike Stevens. Like to say something? We're rare to get him to speak, so this is good.
We'll even give you more than 2 minutes.
I'm Major Shirley with the Sheriff's Office. I'd like to say that we appreciate the Board of County Commissioners taking the time to make a proclamation. The men and women of the Sheriff's Office are the lifeblood of the office. They're what makes it go. So we appreciate them every day. It's nice to have a week, but they're at the office administratively, and as a whole, we appreciate our staff every day of the year. They do a tough job. They do it for very little pay on some scales, but I know that if we continue to work with the commission here in the community, they see the value of the Sheriff's Office. And if you've ever been to the National Law Enforcement Fallen Officers Memorial, it'll touch you at a very base level. I had the opportunity to go last year as we had a member added to the National Wall. So again, we appreciate your time, your dedication to the community, and I appreciate the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? No discussion. Voting, Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. All right, moving on. Consider a motion to approve a letter of support for funding of Leavenworth County Mobility Study in matching funds of up to $10,000.
Commissioners, this is follow-up to the work session that we had with the KCATA. At that time, the board asked me to work with them to draft a support letter. This study would be a countywide study that would look to basically public transit, what routes might be supported, what the cost would be. The hope is that the KCATA would apply for a grant, and they would split half of the local share, and then the grant picks up 90%, and then the local government picks up the rest, with the KCATA participating. After that study's done, they'd present what the findings were to basically all the communities in the county. There will be a cost to not just the study, but if the board wants to move forward after the study, obviously there's a cost to that as well. But at this point, you're just committing to the up to $10,000.
Is this similar to the transportation study that if we adopt this kind of opens doors for additional funding sources?
Well, I think without this study, you won't know what the need and the best opportunities are in the county. I think the study identifies that. And then as far as funding going forward, they would help to identify if there are any grants available. But long term, just like the city has their local transportation, City of Leavenworth has, and we have the Council on Aging transportation, there's a cost. And there's no matter how many grants we find, there will always be a local cost. So, but without this, I think it's hard to identify what the need is.
Is there a motion?
This is 90% paid though, right, Mark?
Yeah. So the $10,000 would be the limit that we would pay. KCATA has agreed to match that amount. It could be less depending on the cost of the survey when it's all said and done. But they want to apply for a grant to Mid-America through the Mid-America Region Council.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve a letter of support for the funding of a Leavenworth County mobility study and matching funds up to $10,000.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. Is there discussion?
Aye.
Seeing none, Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 All right. Moving on. This is the motion to enter into a cost funding agreement with Western Molar Project Company, LLC. Why don't you describe that, Mark?
Or Matt.
Or Misty or whoever.
I think Misty prepared the memo and has worked diligently on this agreement, so I'll let her do that.
Okay. So, Commission, what you have before you is a proposed funding agreement for the Commission's consideration. When you have a potential large development coming in, it is common that a government might need to incur third-party expenses for additional review, whether it's third-party consultants, engineering assessments, etc. It is common for the developer to pre-fund that so that no tax dollars are spent in reviewing a project. So this is an agreement which Cloverleaf, which when they incorporated under the Meadowlark LLC, would fund $450,000 upfront to be put into an account to cover the cost of third parties that the county might need to review the proposals. If the funds are not spent, ultimately at the end it is returned to Cloverleaf. The maximum cap at this point they have is up to $500,000, with the understanding that if the county were to need more to review the project, that we would have to speak to them before we spent more than $500,000 to review it.
So what would the impact of a moratorium be on this agreement?
It depends on the nature of the moratorium. So,
okay, for example, if we have a moratorium that stated that typically a moratorium is we're pausing further development towards the project.
I mean, if you're asking, like if you had a moratorium where you wanted no additional information, you did not want staff to proceed with doing any more research or incurring any expenses on the project, then no funds could be spent, no activity could be incurred. If you had a moratorium where we would not accept any applications, but staff would continue to gather information and seek information, then the funding agreement would be beneficial so that we can make sure we had the best people at the table giving advice.
So would it be appropriate for us to have a discussion about the moratorium ahead of this discussion on this?
It seems like that might be helpful, depending on which way the commission goes. This is ultimately a policy decision.
So is it agreeable to shift to...
Yeah, I'm not ready to do this until we have the other one. That's my opinion.
So can we shuffle this down the behind the data center and moratorium discussion?
I have no problem with that.
Is that okay?
That's
everyone? All right. So we'll move to that discussion.
Let's take a break.
Oh, I have been asked that we take a break of 10 minutes. So
I'm old, folks. Give me a couple minutes.
we're going to be recessed for 10 minutes till 10:30.
Are you going back in order?
Yeah, we're waiting to see the camera's not on. As soon as it's on, we're waiting on the camera. It's a little delayed.
It's on now.
All right, welcome back. We're into session. We will now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is going to be data center regulations and moratorium discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a suggestion to the board before we get started here. In lieu of a lot of personal testimony that has come from the audience on the data centers, on the pros and cons of it, and in short, I think that it would be advantageous to everyone here to have a discussion with what the regulations, proposed regulations that we were looking at, that I had the opportunity to look at last night twice from John Jacobson from the Planning and Zoning.
Yep.
And the reason for that is plain and simple. We have been listening to individuals very, very attentively on what their concerns are. And let's take a step back and look at what the Commission has been doing. For instance, I think everyone here has gone to a data center and we have checked out the noise that individuals have said is out there. And you don't have to raise your hands, but has anyone in the audience gone to a data center you don't have to raise your hands and listen to the noise? Well, 4 of us, I believe, have gone to data center and listen. And I'll just leave it at that. We have done that. So, next, I would like for consideration for us to have the presentation and discussion before we have a discussion on moratorium on this issue, so the individuals can have the information before we make that discussion. Would that be in order, Councilor?
Yes, Commissioners, you can do it. It's on the agenda to discuss the regulations and the moratorium, and it is your discussion to manage.
So, Mr. Chairman, that is my suggestion that we do that before we go into the business of discussing moratorium.
I agree with that.
Yeah, well, let me see if I got you straight on this. When we got the moratorium discussion or the data center regulations, I just got this, but I'm not sure everybody else. I'm not sure this should be a work session, so everybody can be involved in going through this thing. It was well put together. They tried to cover every base, but I want to make sure, because what I keep hearing out here is, transparency. I want sure people understand that this is what the rules are going to look like. We can always bring it back after we have discussion, and then we can vote on it. But I want to make sure we're clear on what the regulations that the county is looking at. That doesn't mean we're going to do these regulations. That's why I want to have a work session or something to go through it, to see, and then get the input of the citizens. Say, what do you think of this, and what do you think of that? And see, so when we bring it back, we can make a more intelligent decision. I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I'll be honest with you, this has been overwhelming. There's so much information out there, and I keep gathering more. I had some questions yesterday that I didn't know the answer to, so I had to track it down. So I'm in no position to say yay or nay on this. But I do understand what's being said about down in Tongi, southern part of the county, and why people feel that way. So until I get all the information, I can't make a decision on this. So I think what Council Commissioner Dove is suggesting is maybe the way we need to go at it.
So I think it is appropriate to have our planning and zoning folks walk us through their proposal. I will tell you that I just received this proposal in the packet on Friday, so I haven't had time to thoroughly comb through and propose. I don't have any amendments to offer or anything like that, and I don't think it's been given to the folks down in Tonganoxie to look at. So that would be a work session I think is really appropriate down the road. But it kind of dovetails in with, if we do move ahead with a moratorium within that period, this is something that can be deliberately worked on and put together during that period, and the folks will know that this project's not moving ahead until we have these type of regulations in place.
I think that I believe that we have enough individuals here who have expressed their concerns to go ahead and have the discussion now with the planning and director of the planning and the zoning, getting those thoughts out there so they can actually hear what has been done and what's being done on almost a daily basis, so the individuals can feel I don't know whether they're going to feel comfortable or not, but at least have them get the information so they can hear it with their own eyes, hear it with their own ears. I don't have my hearing aid. Hear it with their own ears and see that we have been working judiciously to make sure that we have proper information, up-to-date information, not 20-year-old information, but up-to-date information about what the proposal is and how it could or could not be good for parts of Leavenworth County.
So,
Sharon?
Go ahead.
Thank you. We had 4 or 5 days roughly between when the packet was released to the meeting. I did take the time to review it, and I did have a staff meeting as well. I had a few pages of concerns and notes that I had questions on, so I'm ready to proceed, but I'm ready to go either way with the majority of the commission.
So, just to summarize this, I think it would be good now if we had a presentation from Planning and Zoning on their proposal where they walk us through it and let the folks know what you've come up with. But then down the road, I do also agree that having a work session on this when we get ready to adopt it would be appropriate as well.
I thought we were having another work session in the second half of the work session we had. We never really got finished. We never even got to half of the information that most of these people are saying. Why would you consider this? What is the benefit? I keep hearing that over and over. What is the benefit? Why are you doing this? We didn't even get to that part in the work session we had after 6 hours.
Yeah,
so
I agree. And
we need to finish the work session, not have another one. We need to finish the work session that we started.
And I would agree with that. And I also I've spoken to Mr. Pastor about the Kansas Water Plan, and as it turns out, the Kansas Water Plan does not have a component dealing with data centers. But so I think it would be appropriate for us to get some folks up here from the Kansas Water Office and find out, what's the thinking on data centers from their perspective, and probably we need to hear from a number of groups, and probably there's questions to circle back to the ones that we heard from before. So probably we should set that with. But John, come on down and walk us through what you've come up with.
I'll walk you through the draft regulations. Some of these questions are outside of that.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you.
So the regulations we have before you. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Welcome.
All right, so the draft regulations.
I got it. Just one question. This hasn't been seen by anybody in the audience, though, right?
No.
Why don't we have it when we have a screen up when we get to it so they can see what we're walking through?
Well, that's going to take a little more time.
I know, Willie, but I think it's important for the folks to know what John's getting ready to talk about.
Commissioners, this was in the packet.
Public
that we
packet
put out.
portion.
I don't want to. It didn't just come out today. It was in the.
Well, I agree. I agree, Mark, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, I think it's a good idea to show things as we walk through.
Distribute somewhere to, I mean, if it's easier to.
And also, point of clarification: these regulations are draft.
They're
being presented to the Board of County Commissioners. You are not being asked to approve these today. You couldn't approve them even if you wanted to.
Okay.
These have to go through a public process where they go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We bring these to the board first. On any time we do these types of things, we bring them to the board first so you can see them, provide feedback, and then they go to the Planning Commission, which has to go through a notice where it's put in the newspaper. So if today the board said these are great regulations, we'd like them to move forward, it's a minimum of 45 to 60 days before they'll even be heard by the Planning Commission.
But what I was thinking from what he was saying.
We could also have a second work session on them as well, if that's what's needed.
But is it possible that we could put these up on the screen?
It would take a couple of minutes to get that up and going right now, but we could.
Well, let's get that up and going.
We had a meeting, and
are we technologically ready? Okay, everyone, we're going to call the meeting back into session. We got.
Hold on a minute.
Camera's going to come back, but we have our technology now, so you'll be able to see.
As soon as the red light stops blinking, it's on.
It would help if we close the shades. I can't see. Don't worry.
Could someone lower the shades back there so the lady can see?
There we go.
Does that help?
Is that better?
Thank you.
Thanks for the suggestion.
Well, we will continue, and we'll recognize John Jacobson, Director of Planning and Zoning. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner.
It is blurry, just to her
Well,
point.
Opening statement as we go through these standards. These standards have been written to go. These standards have been written to go one of two different ways. It can either be a standalone ordinance, which is what staff would prefer, or it can be a series of standards in multiple zoning districts, as you can see by the opening allowable districts component in the top part of the...
Just a moment. Can you hear in the audience?
No, not a word.
I don't know how I can get any closer.
Hey, can you zoom that so it's larger? Thank you.
I don't know. What's the deal with our microphone? We had better microphones.
We just got a new system. Is the other one any better next to you? Maybe you can swap it out and see. It's not the mix.
Can you hear any better with that? Doesn't seem to be.
Use the one for the podium.
Just bring it down by Discord.
There you go.
Better?
Yeah.
Very better.
Thank you, John.
All right.
We have a winner.
All right. Reiterate what I was just saying earlier. These standards or district requirements have been written to go one of two different ways. They can either be standards for data center development and all the associative uses that can be applied to multiple districts, but each district would be a planned district. That's one option. The second option is a standalone technology district, which is what staff is going to recommend at the PC level. Essentially, the purpose of the standards is to limit the impact of data centers on surrounding land uses and ensure adequate public utilities are available. These standards allow data centers in more districts if you go the standard way. When the impact is minimized and improve active uses that support the vitality of the public domain adjacent to a building. What follows next are definitions and elements of industrial technology, district standards. You can see those statements that go behind that. The IT district ensures compatibility in surrounding areas, minimizing noise, dust, traffic, light, and negative environmental effects. Permitted uses within these IT districts are technology research and development facilities, light industrial, assembly, processing, warehousing, and storage operations associated with and subordinate to data centers, maintenance or technology research and production.
Question. Does that include the cryptocurrency?
No, it does not. And further down the standards, that's a prohibited use.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Permitted accessory uses are office, storage, power supply, and other such building utilities and battery storage facilities normally auxiliary to a data center, or permitted use. Off-street parking, employee fitness centers, which are common to these particular centers, when a standalone facility otherwise permitted by right when located within a primary use. In other words, it's secondary and ancillary to the primary use of the data center. Employee child care facilities, also an integral part of these particular facilities across the country. They offer it as employers, so it is a permitted use within the confines of this particular district. Employee parking, office, when standalone facility, we talked about this. Prohibited uses, residential uses of any type, retail sales, hazardous waste disposal facilities, cryptocurrency mining, as you had asked about, Commissioner. Any use involving public assembly, any use not expressly listed or permitted as primary or secondary. The next components are data center definitions. I don't think I probably need to read that to you or anybody in the room. Data center accessory uses, again, to reiterate, utilities, utility lines, electrical substations, power stations, water towers, mechanical equipment, environmental controls, air conditioning, cooling towers, suppression, redundant backup power supplies, redundant data communication connections, security when located on the same tract, or assemblage of adjacent parcels developed as a unified development for a data center. In other words, there's multiple tracts, but it's under one development envelope. Backup utility generation. This means on-site independent power source and system that automatically activates to provide electricity during a main electric power line outage, ensuring continuous operation of critical IT equipment and infrastructure. The system may consist of a generator, battery energy storage systems, or BESS, automated transfer switches, UPS, uninterruptible power supply systems, and batteries, or other types of backup system which can provide immediate short-term power until the main power grid comes back online and functional. Obviously, these are the diesel backup generators for the primary equipment.
That only run if the electricity's off.
They only run if the electricity is off, and they only protect critical equipment. So it's not 100% generation. It's 20 to 30% as we understand it. Data center complex, obviously these are all the components of the larger development and all the ancillary uses, not just the buildings themselves. Data center site improvements, these are elements that can be located on a data center site. ATS systems, automatic transfer switches, backup utility systems, battery energy storage systems, chillers, cooling towers, electric power facilities such as lines, plant, or substation, fencing, security, fiber-based broadband infrastructure generators, including diesel-fueled, natural gas facilities such as lines, plant, power plant, substation, compressor, or regulators. Parking areas, lots, or structures for employees and visitors parking in compliance with the most current regulations of the authority having jurisdiction. Loading areas, lots or structures for large trucks and equipment in compliance with the most current regulations of the authority having jurisdiction. Maintenance facilities, solar energy projects, should they be applicable. Remember, we're writing this regulation for any data center, not a specific one, over multiple size data centers. So, again, solar projects may be a component of a data center down the road. We want to include it now. Uninterruptible power supplies, again, utilities, public and private. Small-scale data center, you can read all of that. That typically means that the data center is between 5,000 and 20,000 square feet as a footprint, with an energy draw of 1 to 5 megawatts. This is going to be the smallest data center you can get. Medium-sized data centers are up to 100,000 square feet with a power draw of up to 100 megawatts. Large data centers are over 100,000 square feet footprint with a draw of over 100 megawatts. Research and development facilities, power generation facilities, as you can see, intended to support all portions of data center's campus electrical requirements, whether delivered directly or indirectly through an electrical utility or grid arrangement. Such facilities must be located on the same parcel, adjacent parcels, or within a coordinated development area, and may be owned or operated by one or more entities. Eligible technologies include natural gas-fired turbines, reciprocating engines, and other similar successor generation technologies. So these equate to public and private utilities on site. Planned districts will include any planned district. So wherever these are submitted under, no matter which way you go, whether you do it as a standard or whether you do it as a standalone district, it will always be a planned district, which will require a preliminary development plan and a final development plan. But the preliminary development plan will be required at the time of rezoning, up front, when they're first applying. Final development plan submittal and approval has to be in general conformance with the preliminary development plan, and if applicable, it is possible that a final plat can be part of that process. All preliminary development plan process approvals will submit to a public hearing before the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will follow the zoning amendment process to achieve a recommendation status, then forward to the governing body for final action. So you have a public hearing at the Planning Commission level, then like a rezoning action, it moves forward to this body for final approval. Before I move on, are there any questions so far from the guys? Okay. Moving forward, land use. This section will be determined by which direction the board decides to go, whether it be standards or standalone district. If it's simply standards, allowable in planned business districts, MXD, PUD, and planned industrial districts in accordance with the approved land use tables. If land use tables do not specifically include these described uses, a determination will have to be made. Sustainable construction. All construction shall utilize BMPs, best management practices, for sustainable site improvements and structures to include monitoring and Energy Star utility benchmarking. Site efficiency metrics may include, but are not limited to, public utilities, water utilities, whether public or private, and energy sourcing. All data centers cooling must be in the form of a closed-loop system or more efficient technology to limit water usage over the lifespan of the constructed improvements. Coolers utilized in the system must be ecologically friendly. Moving to utilities. All utilities, to the maximum extent possible, shall be located underground at the point of entry in the development state. Thank you, Commissioner. Site studies, minimum site study requirements. The following list of preliminary studies shall be required but may not be limited to: ALTAs, geotechnical investigations, wetlands delineations, Phase 1 environmental site assessment and full environmental impact study, water quality sampling, threatened and endangered species survey, traffic impact analysis, and ambient sound monitoring. These studies shall be submitted and reviewed as part of the application process. Leavenworth County reserves the right to request additional studies as impacts are identified moving through the process. So it's not limited to those studies, but those are the bare minimum.
When those studies are performed, that's at the expense of the developer, correct?
They are performed at the expense of the developer and then reviewed by our staff or third parties.
Okay, thank you.
All data centers are required to submit a service availability letter from the local utility provider, whether that be water or Evergy or some other electric provider. We have to know that they can provide what they're requesting up front as part of the application process. Confirms capacity and commitment to serve the utility demand for the proposed data center. The letter shall be submitted at the time of filing an application for a development plan. Any pertinent communications from the Kansas Corporation Commission in relationship to the submittal. So there's a number of approvals that have to go through the Kansas Corporation Commission. Those will have to be present at the time of preliminary submittal. Development standards. Plans shall be required as part of the application process. We reference the articles and sections. Additional items may be required at the direction of county staff or board of county commissioners. If there's something on the development plan that's not specifically specified, but you believe it needs to be included, that gives you the right to ask for it. Development agreements. All pre-development and development agreements between the developer and or applicant at the county shall be written, accepted, and executed by the Board of County Commissioners before final administrative or county commission action can be granted to include any construction phase. So any agreement has to be executed before a building permit will be issued for an approved plan. Height regulation shall not exceed a height of 40 feet, measured from structure on the pad level to the height and furthest architectural projection, meaning the ridge or the eave. A lot of times it's going to be a mansard, top of the mansard. Height limitations should not apply to accessory structures such as water towers, conveyor belts, and other incidental and uninhabited structures. These heights will be approved per development plan. So a height or a line of sight plan that shows the heights of even the accessory structures will be a component of that development plan and reviewable by the public prior to the public hearing.
Okay.
Setbacks. Setbacks, minimum lot frontage is 300 feet adjoining a street. Minimum lot to width at the building line, 300 feet as well. Small scales, these may vary per development plan, but small scales require a minimum of 10 acres. Front yard setback of 75, side and rears of 50. Medium size, 10 acre minimum, front yard of 75 feet, side and rear yards of 75 feet. Large scale data centers, a minimum acreage of 400 acres with a front yard, rear yard, and side yard of 300. Minimum buffering requirements, minimum of a 250-foot wide buffer, which can be included as part of that setback, shall be required along all property lines abutting a residential district or use, or an agricultural use in order to provide a visual screen. Additional buffering may be required depending on development plan submittal requirements.
Excuse me, John. Mark, I have a question here. The site that we visited, I think it was yesterday, or the day before. What do you? Was that 250 feet from the where we parked in order to listen to what was going on with?
Yeah. So on the GIS website, it shows that they're about 200 feet from the sidewalk. The building is about 200 feet from the sidewalk. 200. I obviously didn't take a tape measure, can't say that's the exact amount, but using their GIS website, it looked like it's about 200 feet from the sidewalk. From where we would have parked, which was on the other side of the street, is probably closer to 300 feet, given the street width and the sidewalk.
And there was hardly any noise coming from the site itself, except for the tractor that was going around doing some outside work, correct?
That's what I noticed.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you.
It was at the site at Smithville?
Yes.
So my understanding is not completely powered up at this point.
The site that
Actually,
we
the
were
first building is online. So it went online in August. There's additional construction going on out there.
Yes.
Next to it.
All right.
The part of the site that we were looking at, the Commissioner, was in operation.
All right. Well, I was there, but
Thank you.
the site I was at, I did not.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Believe it was powered up.
Okay, moving forward. Air conditioning units and HVAC systems shall be thoroughly screened from view of the public right-of-way and from adjacent properties by using buildings, walls, fencing, roof elements, or landscaping. From building facades of all principal buildings shall be oriented toward the street fronts or adjacent arterial street fronts. This requirement shall not apply if the front of the building is greater than 500 feet from the public road right-of-way and not visible from said right-of-way. Security fencing and walls shall not be located within the required buffer unless part of an approved development plan. So it offers you the ability to allow that to either be in or be out, and the Planning Commission as well. Accessory structures shall be subject to these general provisions, and further, notwithstanding other provisions, guard houses and secured entry features shall be permitted as a public road entrance as approved by the development plan. So in other words, there's an inlet to a guard shack with fences and restricting access off of a public road.
Okay.
Roads. Private roads are permitted within data center development that should be designed and built subject to the development plan approval process. In other words, these roads will likely have the same standard that any road in the county would have. Utilities. A data center development is required to have access to public water and sewer. Alternative utilities may be considered on a case-by-case basis and subject to administrative approvals. Horizontal surfaces, non-horizontal surfaces, these are all pretty self-explanatory. Adjacent residential uses as it relates to illumination. The illumination projected onto a residential use shall at no time exceed 0.1 foot candle as measured at the property line on adjacent residential property. Now, this is an increase from whatever is present at the time of development. It's virtually impossible to get 0.1 foot candles, but the intent there is not to exceed what currently is there. So, maintaining the same pre- and post-developed condition as much as possible. Adjacent non-residential uses, the illumination part of that is 0.5, as you can see. Glare vegetation screens shall not be employed to serve as a primary means for controlling glare. Rather, glare control shall be achieved primarily using such means as cutoff, luminaries, and shields and baffles. An appropriate application of luminaire mounting height, wattage, aiming angle, and luminaire placement. This really is relative to LEDs versus any other lighting source. Diodes are directional. They can be placed where you want them to go without much spillover.
along with shields and glare-resistant arms.
Okay.
The intent of the design guideline is to comply with the dark skies requirement. To that end, approval of the lighting components of the preliminary development and final development plan will be subject to third-party review to achieve the intended goal. Moving forward on sound, noise study shall be... Go ahead.
So the older data centers is what a lot of people are complaining about as far as the light that they projected. You can see it from miles away, and if you could see the stars before, you couldn't see them because the data center created the glow that interfered with the dark sky, what you're talking about. This is saying the new data centers don't do it.
This is saying that the new data centers will employ dark sky restrictions, and that will be reviewed as part of the initial plan.
Okay.
Commissioner, there's a very good example of that in the first district on Metro, whereas the power company has the type of lighting, the updated lighting that we're speaking of, that you can't even tell that is a plant until you get approximately 50 feet from it, because there is no overcast of lighting that is disturbing to anyone.
Okay. That's what I thought it said. Let's make sure.
Sound, a noise study shall be completed and included as part of the development plan. So there's a preliminary study that's done and reviewable in a pre-developed condition. Soundproofing for data centers on property adjacent to property with existing residential development, an approved development plan or plat, or plan showing residential development, a zoning district, permitted residential uses or permitted residential uses, any data center mechanical equipment located on the property, whether on the roof or top or ground level, or elsewhere on the exterior of the property, must be screened on all four sides by an acoustical barrier. You see these a lot in school districts as you have RTU units to limit the amount of dB that spills outside the mechanical equipment. So this is a requirement for that. This section, acoustic barrier, is defined as an exterior solid or louvered wall containing soundproofing materials designed to absorb noise and protect neighboring parties from more noise pollution. Oops, sorry about that. Generator noise adjacent to residential. Property with existing resident on approved development plan or plat showing residential development. The following standard applies to generator testing, subject to Livermore County's regulations of permits issued for the property. So this would be the backup generator testing. Generator testing is limited to between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. Except for generator testing or commissioning activities, generator use is limited to backup and emergency use only. So in other words, they can't be run unless there is a critical event.
Yeah.
Pre and post development noise through the required study and incorporated into the development plan process, including as part of the final development plan submittal. Post developed levels may not exceed 55 decibels over the established. A backup generator, logically, they most of the time are on diesel.
Do they have to be rotated out or serviced every 6 months?
They have to.
Run that fuel through it.
They're normally serviced twice a year, normally in the spring and the fall.
So you run the fuel through it.
Yeah, for a limited amount of time. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's see. Post-developed levels may not exceed 55 decibels over the established baseline. So in other words, the baseline is set by the original study. No matter what happens, you can't increase that level by 55 decibels over that at the property line.
So this is saying 55 decibels is about how loud? About the conversation we're having right now?
Lightly spoken people will be at 55. I can go up to 70 myself. So that's,
okay.
Yeah.
So the level of conversation between two people is the loudest sound that can be projected at the property line?
That is the loudest increase in sound that can be projected at the property line.
Above what it was before?
Right. A standard air conditioner is about 70 to 75 decibels, if that gives you a line of reference.
So everybody keeps saying you can hear these things for 10 miles away. So this one, you're not going to be able to hear 10 miles away?
You can't.
You're not.
And if additional screening is required, let's say that for whatever reason you did, it's built into the regulation that you can ask the authority having jurisdiction, which in this case would be the BOCC, can ask for additional density and screening to drop that dB level. We don't believe it'll get there, but we have a remedial action should it occur.
So this is the big one that that 400 emails I get a day on this. the first three things they say is they use all the water, they're really loud. So if they're not loud, the 55 decibels at the property line is not loud at all.
Well, again, this mandates.
What does it mean?
This
doesn't mean 55 decibels, that means 55
over what it was before. So the sound it's making when they
the
did
pre-developed
before,
condition, whatever that decibel let is set at before anything is done on that site, that sets the original decibel level, likely in the 30s. Unless someone's running a tractor or driving a car down the road, it likely is going to be 30. There is no more increase than 55 decibels.
Above that.
Above that.
You up to 85.
85
and you need
decibels.
to look at, that's like equal to a chainsaw.
Not 85 decibels.
Just a question, when we're typically running these SUPs through and we have a restriction on at the property line, isn't it typically 70? Is that what are you typically putting on the regulations?
County SUPs.
Typically,
what? Pretty sure it's normally that or 60.
yeah, normally we'll restrict between 65 and 75 dB as a cap for SUPs at the property line. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my recollection was that. The other thing about the noise is the fact, if you have a factory and you have trucks running, you have the noise. But here, the issue has been like zzz, constant, day and night, and it's a little bit different.
But how loud?
Well, whatever it is. That's what when you hear people talking about data centers, they're saying, I have to hear this low hum, and it's constant.
And the older data centers were loud.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if the new data centers are much different than the old ones or not.
Well, there will be a study based on what the pre and post conditions will be and established and have to meet that requirement.
Keep in mind, these are draft regulations with suggestions. If the board wants to set a hard cap, that's why we're bringing it now, so that you all have a chance to consider that. So you can set the hard cap if you want to, or take this approach. Either way, again, just recommendations. Nothing in this.
In other words, collect your notes. Let's get it back to John from everybody, and let's see if we can put this at where people are.
So let me finish the next paragraph, which will give you some comfort with that. Field verification of post-development noise levels will be required for the issuance of any full or partial certificate of occupancy. Should additional screening density be required as a remedial action to field conditions, it shall be at the discretion of the authority having jurisdiction and added as an addendum to the final development plan. That was the piece that we talked about earlier.
Yes.
So,
in other words, if we're not happy with it, or there's something like that, we can go back and say this is, or we can say you're going to drop this down further, or no go.
you can, yeah, and then another post-developed dB level will be established, and if they need further density, then they'll have to do further density. So this is a catch-all to make sure
It gives you control.
It gives you control at the end of the day, and it's added as an addendum to the final development plan, which requires it from that point on.
And I hope the public will take this and look at it and offer your suggestions.
Well, again, this also has to go through the Planning Commission, and it's going to have to go through a public hearing. So likely, my intent is that there will be some modification to this. What I need from the commission today is a direction. Do you want to see it as a standard, or do you want to follow staff's recommendation as a standalone district? So moving forward, screening and buffering areas.
Consider the construction years, decibels.
Commissioners, how do you want me to respond to?
No, I just want you to present this.
Okay.
For right now.
Okay.
The crowd needs to know what they're able to do. The crowd needs to know what they're able to do. Whether it's Q&A.
Let's get to the end of this, and then we'll
he's getting questions from the crowd.
Oh, okay. But, ladies and gentlemen, we'll address every question we can, but I want him to finish his presentation. And then the commissioners are going to have a chance to ask questions then. And we'll try to address every question we get. This is just a first read. Like I said, I just received it on Friday. I haven't had time to go thoroughly through it, but we're going through it for a first time right now.
Have them write your question. If somebody in the audience has a question, always talk about, write it down real quick, and then at the end, I'll answer it.
Okay, go ahead.
Buffering and screening areas. Data centers where combined footprint of the principal structure or structures is less than 20,000 square feet, in between 5 to 20,000 square feet, a minimum of a 100-foot buffer shall be provided along the entire length of the public street frontage in any portion upon which the data center is located along any property line which abuts or is within 500 feet of an existing residential property line or zone, school, daycare center, hospital, place of worship, designated park, or public open space. When the footprint gets to 100,000, it becomes a 250-foot buffer, and so on. As we increase over the 100,000 square footprint, we move to a 300-foot buffer. So as you can see, as the footprint goes higher, we get more and more buffer. Utilities should be located outside the buffer yards to the maximum extent feasible to maintain a cohesive buffer yard, protect landscaping, and preserve open space. Utilities should be co-located when feasible to minimize the number of utility crossings through the required buffer yard, particularly when such crossings cannot be avoided. We want to make sure once they're established, they don't get killed by utility relocation because somebody has located them within that area. We want to make sure it's maintained. Use of existing vegetation for landscaping screening is strongly encouraged and may be substituted for new berms and plantings if approved by the final development plan. This is an attempt to utilize old growth trees, existing buffering areas, as opposed to ripping that out and putting something new there. So the developer does get some credit for existing vegetation if they utilize that in their buffer space.
Okay.
Where lot line drainage or utility easement is required, the buffer yard shall be measured from the inside edge of that easement. Buffer yard shall not include environmental encumbrances such as, but not limited to, wetlands, wetland transition areas, riparian buffers, and flood hazard areas as may be imposed by outside agencies. So in other words, you can't have a bunch of floodplain and count that as your buffer zone. The planting shall be arranged to provide a complete visual screen of the property at least 12 feet in height, measured in addition to the height of any required berm within 3 years. So it has to reach that 12-foot height within 3 years of planting. That's the intention of that buffer. The buffer yard may be located within the required setback. No impervious surface is permitted within the buffer zone aside from the access drives, sidewalks, and associated improvements. Renewable energy incentive plan. Within 10 years, 25% of the accredited capacity will be produced by renewable sources within the Southwest Power Pool. The data center's annual electrical energy consumption shall be matched by renewable energy credits from renewable energy resources located and interconnected to the Southwest Power Pool, as verified through evidence of retirement of such RECs on an annual basis. The REIP will be incorporated into the preliminary and final development plan agreements to encourage sustainable energy programs that may include local, state, and national programs. Moving forward, energy benchmarking. Use best practices to implement energy efficiency design practices, such as proper air management and cooling systems to enhance overall energy efficiency. In other words, in the building and the structure themselves. Utilize Energy Star Portfolio Manager to report the site's energy and water consumption annually. Energy efficiency targets will be determined through the executed development agreement and reviewed annually. Environmental protection. A full environmental impact assessment is required at the developer's expense. Stormwater management plan that exceeds state requirements and accepted by the county engineer. Potable water uses shall be minimized during design and subject to public monitoring as listed previously in the document. Public improvement plans. Applicant and developer acknowledges they may have to comply with Article 55 of the zoning regulations, which has to do with roads, curbs, gutters, geometric improvements. So if this site were to incorporate one or all of those, they would have the responsibility of putting those in place and the design component. Any approved development plan will be required to comply with all state, local, and federal requirements. With that is the end of the document.
So we're going to take questions, and I'll start with Mr. Smith.
I don't have any right now. I'm still reviewing.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. When you talk about the battery storage facilities on site, does this regulation have any regulation for standalone battery storage facilities?
This is only for accessory structures. So in other words, it's backup.
We specifically call out the cryptocurrency mining, but we could call out the battery storage if we desire.
Battery storage is a typical component of data centers to some degree, as a backup power system. So you could, I suppose, if
But
you
the
want.
standalone facilities, how are they typically regulated?
Standalone facilities, I believe we'll be seeing something on that in the near future. Been working on that.
As a separate
As a separate item, right, not as part of this item.
Okay.
The only reference here is accessory to the primary use. Standalone BES facilities will be a separate document.
Okay, when you turn the page, let's see, I guess it's the back. I guess they're not numbered, but under backup utility generation, earlier this year we had the discussion of the on-site nuclear plants, the little small nuclear reactors. Where does this fit into this regulation?
Nuclear reactors are not prohibited and are not approved as part of the backup utility generation.
Does it state that specifically?
No, it's completely left out of the document.
Okay.
It names what you can use, not what you can't.
So under this document, since it's not specifically named,
It would have to be amended. If you wanted to allow nuclear generation, it would have to be amended.
But we're not calling it out at all.
No.
So it's silent.
Right.
So let's say we're a developer and we wanted to incorporate that into our project. How would we approach the county?
You would have to change this regulation or get the development plan approved via an action by the board.
So standalone generators, the only standalone generators at this point that we allow are specifically diesel?
No, you're talking about backup generation.
Yes, the backup generation.
Backup generation is diesel. Now, we allow a few other options through there. I think we list most of these. System may consist of a generator, battery energy storage system, automatic transfer switches, uninterruptible power supply systems, and batteries and other types of backup systems. So there's a number, not just diesel, but diesel is included.
So they could have a battery storage facility, much like it's being proposed down by Baser, actually on the site of the data center.
If it's accessory to the primary use, yes, they could have a backup energy storage system, yes.
And so if we approve this regulation, we're approving that
as an accessory use, not a standalone backup energy storage system.
But none of them are standalone. I mean, the diesel generator is not standalone, it's for backup, right?
Well, there are backup energy storage systems that are absolutely standalone, but they're not part of these regulations.
But we could have on-site the batteries.
You can.
It could be a battery situation, just like south of Baser that they're proposing, could also be on the site of the data center.
Well, I don't know if that's a standalone facility. I believe that is a standalone facility, not accessory to any primary use. So the answer to that is in the absence of the regulation. You can't do it unless it's through an SUP. This regulation will allow you to have a small-scale BESS system within the confines of the data center development.
But as far as you're concerned, no small nuclear reactor would be permitted unless the regulation was changed?
It would have to be modified.
Okay.
How does small nuclear reactor get involved in this conversation with the data centers?
Because you recall that they were proposing to bring those small nuclear reactors. Remember the conversation about 2 months ago? We had no. It was a small nuclear reactor, and we voted as a board to actually move ahead with that conversation. Do you recall that?
Not for data centers,
no. No, for the small nuclear reactor. You recall that conversation?
The conversation, but not for data centers.
I'm just saying, could it be a backup for the data center? And I want to find out what the regulations are. That's what I'm saying.
It's in this document under L and utilities that they may use anything.
As approved in the development plan. So the defined backup is here. What the intent of that is that you can combine systems in the development plan. not carte blanche, whatever is out there. It still has to pass through the public hearing process, and it still has to pass through the development plan process.
So that's the whole gist of the whole thing, is why we need to have more time, because we certainly don't have the answers to all of this. I mean, right now, and I'll ask you this: did you use a template to develop these regulations, or is there a national organization that promulgates these type of regulations, or did each one come from a different place?
At multiple areas of the country, and specific to areas that are similar to what we are, a rural setting, not necessarily an urban setting.
Okay. I will ask, moving on. When you divide the small scale, medium scale, and large scale is over 100 megawatts, correct?
Correct.
Well, do we need to have a category like for the hyper data centers? Like what they're proposing here is a 1.2 gigawatt.
That is over 100, whatever number over 100.
So
100 is the bottom side.
Is there a line there that maybe there should be another category?
Most categories are going to be small, medium, and large. I don't know that we need to, in my opinion. We went back and forth on this sizing component. So it really is power draw. And the layout and the building footprint is substantially different at 100,000 and less. That's why you have the first two criteria.
So if you have a 600,000, though, is that, in your mind, is that equivalent to a 1.2 gigawatt?
From a footprint standpoint, yes. That's why the minimum acreage on that large capacity center is 400 acres. That's a large footprint.
I mean, that makes this proposal one of the largest in the region.
Again, this isn't written for a specific project. This is written for a specific use.
So I'm wondering if we should have a fourth category. Anyway, when we do our work session, I think we can talk about that. So under sustainable construction and under the total, when you're talking about water, I noticed there's no gallonage amount listed at all. Well, should we have a total limitation on the amount of gallonage they can use per year?
Well, I think you would have to establish a footprint and know exactly what type of building, the size of building, and the use required would be. I don't think a general statement saying you can't provide this, because at the end of the day, any water purveyor is going to have to sign off on this saying that they can provide that amount of gallons, no matter what it's going to be. The county is not a utility purveyor, so we are somewhat reliant on those utilities to say that their capacity has the capability to serve this particular use. So whether we restrict the gallons or not, that will end up being the water purveyor or utility purveyor's call.
And then another provision, the water reclaimed on site, if there's an accident or the closed loop system is drained, do we have any kind of requirements that the water that is spilled or leaked that obviously has some chemicals in it, is it going to have to be reclaimed and trucked out of there, or is there?
If there's an emergency event, it would be part of the emergency response plan, which is a requirement of the development plan that goes through our emergency response team and identified. There's a protocol by which you have to call these individuals. This will be handled by this individual or utility. So yeah, it's part of a larger plan.
Right. And since we don't have the exact proposal, we don't know exactly what kind of a closed loop system they're actually proposing, because we have not yet seen the proposal. So,
well, again, Commissioner, this was written for a use, not a specific project. So, in the absence of a plan, I can't tell you what type of system that it is. I can only tell you that this regulation requires a closed-loop system. It may be an immersion system, it may be evaporative, it may be a number of different things. I can't tell you in the absence of a plan, but this does require a closed-loop system.
So when we get into a work session, maybe we're going to have to specify exactly what kind of a closed-loop system that is and exactly how the water reclamation is going to be accomplished.
From a maintenance standpoint, I think it's going to be really dependent on the technology that you're dealing with, how that maintenance is accomplished. I don't know that we can mandate how that maintenance is done within the structure itself outside of an emergency situation and an event. So I think we're clearly within our bounds to specify what can be done in an event, an emergency event. But as far as standard maintenance, if they meet this criteria, I don't know that is, I don't know it's enforceable.
Well, anyway, when we get into, and I haven't researched what regulations are out there on that, so that's obviously something to talk about. When we're talking about fencing, is a specific type of fencing? Is it going to be chain link fencing? What kind of fencing is it going to be typically? Or does this regulation call out a specific type?
No. Again, we leave that up to the discretion of the designer and the approval of both bodies involved. You can specify anything you'd like to see during that development plan process. Typically, what these are going to be is chain link fence. On occasion, you'll have vinyl wrapped chain link. Typically, it's 8 feet tall with concertina wire on the top. I believe we call out for that in the security in one portion of the document. It normally wraps the entire campus. Security is a huge thing in data centers. Access to the data center is extremely hard to achieve. That's why there's guard towers, and it looks a lot like a prison yard from a fencing standpoint.
So if we adopt this, we still have our current zoning classifications on County Road 1.
You do.
This will have to go through the process to be added to those. Is that correct, or how will that work?
No. If you choose to do a standalone district like staff is recommending, it will be added to the other districts in the overall zoning and subdivision regulations of the county. If someone wanted to come in and change what the base zoning would be, then they would have to move to this particular district, go through a rezoning process and a development plan process.
Okay, so I visited with the county council last week, and my understanding was that if this was adopted, that it would require a rezone for Cloverleaf to come, for whatever the group is to come in.
Yes.
Is that still the case?
That is the case, but the development plan process is part of that rezoning. So you must have a preliminary development plan when you're rezoning to a planned district, of which this will be.
That's all I have. Mr. Dove.
I would think this is
Mr. Reed.
Audience for you.
Do it. Okay. Mr. Reed.
Thank you. Some of what I had gone over with staff yesterday, I will talk a little bit more about here. So, the 400-acre minimum for the large data centers is aggressive, I think, and I'm interested in verbiage that would be more like regulated based on impacts. Same situation with the setbacks and buffers. They also seem extreme. I would like verbiage that's more like measurable impact standards. And then I wasn't sure that 55 wasn't too high, and we talked about this. I would like to say 40, more for the sound above the baseline instead, coming down a little bit on that. And can you go over a little bit our discussion on decommissioning requirements?
The decommissioning of the site itself? Yeah, there is not currently any specific decommissioning requirement in this plan. And typically, that's not a component, at least in the policies that we've seen, because the building, if the building, for whatever reason, would be abandoned sometime in the future, those buildings are reusable a lot of times for warehousing projects. And I don't know what you know about warehousing, but they don't stay open long. So that's something very viable in the commercial industrial areas. So repurposed to a large scale warehousing facility is typically logical, or redevelopment into some other type of use. That's why there's no decommissioning component.
That's all for me. Thank you.
Mr. Colby.
Just a couple quick things. So basically, this is a set of rules we're working on, and the things that we have gone over that I get most questions about was one was the sound. So So our rules would say they can't project more than a normal conversation at the property line, above what it was prior to the data center. Light, these rules would say they have to keep the sky dark. Water, we didn't really talk about that. I think that's probably going to come up more in the work session, but
Well, by mandating the closed-loop system, that is the most conservative.
So the older data centers that use 10 million gallons of water a day that everybody is hollering at me about this data center, the new data centers don't use water.
No.
They use a closed radiator system, so you don't add water to it at all every day.
Not every day. There is an annual cycle, but as, you know...
So once a year you might replace it.
So again, this isn't a specific project, this is a specific use, and those technologies improve by the day. So who knows what they'll be, in another 5 years.
So if this data center they're proposing uses water, like everybody is worried about, they wouldn't get the permit. They wouldn't be allowed to build. We're saying you can't use a system that uses water.
We're not saying it can't use water. We're saying it can't be a continual daily basis.
Right.
So in other words, they load the system with, it could be glycol and water, it could be a number
of
of
the ones
different
we're worried about uses lots of water
every day. Right. That is not a closed-loop system.
We're saying they can't do that.
We're saying you cannot do that. You
Okay.
have to incorporate a closed-loop system in your design.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, I have questions from the audience, but just one little response to the water situation. While it is a closed-loop system and it uses less water locally, it uses more electricity, and therefore that requires the water to come from somewhere. So when we're talking about our Kansas water plan does not have a component dealing with data centers, somewhere nearby they're using more electricity and they're drawing more water from the Kansas River or from some location where we have a power plant. They're drawing more water than they would have with the old system.
Power plant using more water.
Yeah, the power plants, which is affecting our region, which is
indirectly.
Right, indirectly. So we do have some questions from the public, and please apologize if I don't read your writing. Okay, this is just a comment about that they didn't think we had open public comment well enough, so I don't think that one's a question. Other contacts have completely prohibited diesel generators. This document should as well. It is double and would lessen the illness caused by the particulate matter.
Doable.
So screening money from the developer is a conflict of interest. Studies of I can't read the whole thing, but it's basically do real clear studies before we move ahead. I think that's what it's saying. And I will say that with large developers, the county does. We don't do the studies for them. They have to pay to do the study, and that's not just with a data center. That's with anybody else.
That's there if I went to vote.
Oh, was that you?
I'm sorry, I wrote so big. Anytime a study is paid for by an entity, the study always leans toward their favor, and any study done should be completely independent and independently verified.
I agree with that if it's a study. Thank you.
And health issues were brought up, so I'm going to recommend that it's not added, that you add the EFM specs on like cancer.
Well, we'll be bringing this all to a work session, and everybody's going to have a chance to weigh in.
Okay.
So, and I do apologize if I'm not able to. Whose idea was this to do the cards?
Well, here's a good handwriting one.
You read it. Read it.
There you go, Mike. That's a good one.
Okay. While remedial action is taken if a facility exceeds the 55 decibels over baseline, how is the baseline established? How frequently will generators be execute. I think you did it.
So,
They exercise generators.
And I think you
so let me
did
answer that again. Yeah, just going from the top. Give me the top one again, Commissioner. Very first part.
It was in there.
What remedial action is taken if the facility exceeds 55 decibels over the baseline? How is the baseline established?
Hold on. We're going to, right there. So the baseline is established by the preliminary study at the preliminary plat. There's a study that occurs when they offer a pre-zoning and try to apply for the preliminary development plan. So that gives you the baseline. If you exceed that baseline in a post-developed condition, you have additional screening requirements that are at the discretion of the Board of County Commissioners to whatever density they want to choose, should the field condition exists that it violates this section of the regulations. That's the enforcement component. And it becomes an amendment to the final development plan and thereafter becomes a component of its approval.
And then how is ecologically friendly coolant defined? How are these coolants disposed of?
Well, there are a number of design elements and proprietary components that are involved in that. So we're willing to, I don't know that we want to specify you can only use one. I think that you need to have the ability to give the designer some lateral mobility in what he uses in his equipment. We'll ask for the definition of what each and every coolant that they're possibly going to use to see where that lays in relationship to ecologically friendly. It's a general statement. There is no standard criteria for it.
So this had a little bit more ahead of it, but it says there's no remediation clause in the regs. How are you going to make sure we
Well, here's the situation. If you have an approved final development plan and preliminary development plan, if you go outside of that, then you don't have a plat, you don't have an approved plan, you don't have the capacity to continue to operate your business in the absence of those zoning approvals. That's remediation. Then it ends up across the street.
Okay. Now this is a person that disagrees with Commissioner who says, why the 300 setback? Why not a larger distance? Because new regs 500 to 1,000 foot setback. So I guess when we do our work session, we can discuss the setbacks.
When we put these together, we looked at a number of areas in the country, and we're aggressive with our setback. I put 300 in. The average is 200 to 250 on hyperscale centers.
You can blame me for the note cards. When Commissioner Culbertson asked them to write things down, I wanted them to have a way to do it so we could get their feedback, so I asked staff to provide them.
They're good. They're
good. I just can't read.
There's another question here about the decibels, and this person indicates maybe having a third-party expert apart from the developer to look at the noise regulation. What regulations would we put on construction during the construction phase? Will it be regulations for the construction phase?
Well, we didn't put those in this particular document. However, we can. If that's something the BOCC wants to see, we can do that.
It's significant.
So if you don't put them in, where are they going to, I mean, obviously there are
a number of places you could put them in. You could put them in a development agreement, but logically, both a construction thoroughfare or road, how are they going to access, where are they going to access that, and hours of operation can be included in the development plan process. That's not outside.
We're developing a regulation that's going to be long-term, because there could be, maybe down the road, there'll be somebody else who wants to do one of these in
we can.
Leavenworth or somewhere.
Again, you already have the ability to do that within the ancillary documents that go along with platting, but if you want to see that as part of the regulations, we can certainly do it. What I would suggest to you, at some point in time, we will separate land use and zoning requirements from technical specifications, which include road improvements, public improvements, those types of things. Typically, that's when you're going to find your hours of operation, construction operation, haul routes, all those types of things are typically in a technical specification. So it may reach beyond this regulation into our zoning regulations.
What about the amount of heat coming off of the site?
The amount of heat coming off of a site?
Yeah.
Okay. What time of year?
Well,
Any time of year.
I think that is
15 degrees higher than the surrounding area.
Well, here's what I would say. Any concrete structure, any roofed structure will not have the same cooling capacity as an open field. So it is logical that any paved surface or hard surface will increase some temperature range. If it's 15 or 20 degrees, I can't tell you exactly what that degree range is. I'm sure everybody, has an opinion what that may be. But it has not been included in the regulations.
I mean, houses heat the surrounding air.
Yes.
Of course.
That's why if you watch the news every night, it's warmer inside town than it is out in the rural areas because there's more hard surface area.
I think it's a thing on the map. If you research these data centers, I think it is a thing of how much heat they're generating.
Well, again, I think that has more to do with structure than it has to do with equipment.
Okay, how do you run studies and write regulations on a data center when the proposal blue stem is bigger than most? How is this comparing apples to apples when here we're talking about a mega data center and many of the ones in the Kansas City area are not mega data centers? They're very much smaller.
Well, again, I'm not writing this regulation for a specific project. This is a regulation for all data centers, and the large-scale data center components that we have in the regs should address any hyperscale center over 100,000 feet. The footprint is going to be much larger than 100,000 feet, but all of those are applicable, and this is a very comprehensive document if you review most of the documents that are out there currently.
So, well, thank you all for submitting these, and I'm sorry I stumbled over the reading.
Yeah, got one more.
Oh, yeah.
Come on down.
Okay. There are bald eagles here in the area. Has there been a federally filed eagle survey 660 feet or more away from where they live?
Again,
where would that fit in this regulation?
well, I believe it's in the minimum studies component. But again, we don't have an application for anything. So no, I don't believe a study has been done, at least I haven't seen one. But it is applicable in the minimal studies. I believe that's on right here. Threatened and endangered species survey. But if you want it specific to bald eagles, you certainly could ask for it.
All right, thank you all for submitting your questions. This is just the beginning of this because we've just seen this for a few days. This is going to be a long process on this, but do look it up online and look at the regulations and compare it, if you will, to other regulations across the country and see if you feel that there's better regulations that we could adopt. Forward your ideas. So now, the discussion of. There's a discussion of a moratorium, so I'm going to make a motion for us to discuss. I move that we adopt a moratorium or pause on further development. I will. I move that we adopt a moratorium or pause on further development of Project Blue Stem and any other data center project within Leavenworth County for a period of 90 days. During the period, the Commission shall further investigate all aspects of data center development, including the impact on the electrical grid, local water supplies, protection of the environment, and other issues. As we continue the process of developing appropriate regulations during this period, the county will move towards those regulations, and I have to get this wording in. The wording is, in addition, no additional work by staff.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
shall proceed towards the project or facilitation of the project in any other manner while the data for the development of regulations continues. And this moratorium shall apply also to battery storage and crypto storage facilities if they are proposed. And Counselor, what was you had a specific wording there that I needed to include, and I'm not sure, did that capture it?
Commissioner, I'm going to need some more clarification.
Okay.
I think what you're saying is you want 90 days for the commission to consider a variety of aspects, and I wrote it down, and that you're saying you don't want staff to do any additional work on the project during this moratorium.
I move that it's adopting a moratorium for us to have time to develop our regulations, develop appropriate regulations during this period, and no application from any data center shall be received by Leavenworth County. And that's for 90 days until we get our regulations in place.
Can I ask a question? Yes. As far as, make sure I'm clear on this. If we do this, then that means any information or anything that we're gathering stops right now, even though we're trying to get answers for the public. Is that what this is saying?
That's what I think, and it's the opposite of the way I want to go. I'm trying to get more information. We don't have an application yet. How long does it take typically when an application process starts or through the process? Does it take 90 days?
Depending upon the timeline, because of public
depending on when they
notice.
submitted it during the month. So they did it right after the deadline. So we got to wait another.
Yeah, if they waited, like, let's say they just missed the deadline by a day, it could be 60 to 75 days. If they made the deadline, the quickest it could be would be like 45 days.
But if if we have a 90-day moratorium, that says we're not, staff and such is not working for this project, but we have planned to do an additional work session and formalize these regulations that we talked about today and get those in place. And that's what the moratorium is. Right now we have nothing in place at all.
The only way I'd see that, what you're saying, would be an issue is, would they be grandfathered in if we didn't have the regulation in place before they applied, before they turned in their application? Because it's when we approve it, not when they turn in the application, of what regulations they have to follow, or if we had guidelines set up that they would have to follow. If we come up with those after they turn their application in, we haven't approved their application, it's just in the application process. So if we come up with these regulations after they turn their application in, they would still have to follow all the regulations that we come up with. They wouldn't be grandfathered in.
Yeah. Commissioners, so right now there is no path forward other than an SUP. That's the only path forward for this data center, because they're not allowed currently under regulations that require an SUP.
What is SUP?
A special use permit. So they'd have to get a special use permit. They have to apply for that. Then the application has to go through all the processes that we were just talking about, including coming back to the Board of County Commissioners. With a special use permit, you put conditions on them. And those conditions, I would anticipate, would be that they have to follow any regulations that we have. So it would still be covered at your direction, or with staff as a condition.
And I'm just trying to lay that out there so people understand it. So
this would basically what this would do is put a 90-day pause, so we get regulations into place that we currently do not have on data centers. And we looked at one version today, and we walked through those. But there's going to have to be a work session and probably a lot of different versions. And you heard a little discussion about the setbacks and those kind of issues. So in order to get those regulations in place, we simply put a pause. And this is not unusual. Many counties across the state have been adopting these pauses on data centers while we determine that we'll do this with a deliberate process. We will not be rushed, and we'll make sure we're making proper and right decisions, and that a 90-day pause on this is until we have regulations in place. I think that's appropriate. So that would be my motion.
Well, how do we make put forth any regulations at all if staff have been told by that you need to stop anything?
That's the part
that doesn't preclude staff from developing regulations.
Well, that's what it says.
No, it precludes staff from moving forward with a specific project.
I think what you said is that we would not be allowed to speak to anybody in regards to data centers or VES.
Right. No, we wouldn't move ahead on a project until we have our regulations in place.
So you made a motion.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Hey, listen, I see what we're trying to get here. I don't have any problems with slowing down what you've heard. I totally agree with that. 60, 90 days, 100 days. But I got to feel comfortable I can get information from whoever I want to be able to answer these questions and do this.
This won't restrict you getting information. This will just say we don't move ahead with...
Doesn't it restrict staff, though, Mike?
What's that?
Doesn't it restrict staff?
No. Staff can gather as much information as...
Hold on.
Staff can gather as much information as they want. Staff cannot move ahead on the specific project until we have our regulations in place. So that's what it's saying. We can move ahead. We can have our work session and get these regulations set. We can do all of that, but we're not going to move forward until we have those regulations in place.
Okay, just to continue this, I'll second it just to have continue the conversation with this. I'm still not clear on how we can get there. I want to be able to talk to people, and get this information back to us. Of course, the citizens we want, but I want experts and everybody else on both sides of the aisle to be able to talk to me too, or talk to the staff so I can research myself. I don't want to limit anything that I'm trying to accomplish by getting myself smarter, basically, on this.
I have a question from Mark.
You need a year to do it.
If somebody turns in an application for an SUP, is there a timeline, deadline for the county to get back to them or to finish processing the SUP after the public hearing is handled?
I'm sorry, after the public
After
hearing?
the public hearing is all done, is there a time deadline for the county to give them an answer, yes or no, on that SUP?
Yes, I think after the public hearing is concluded, and assuming, the commission at that point, they don't table it after the public hearing. On some rare occasions, the applicant might.
Is it possible?
It's typically, would be very irregular because you are in a quasi-judicial process at that point.
Yeah, but I don't think we have any regulation that says there's a deadline to finish the SUP.
After a public hearing?
Yeah, I was just saying, if somebody did apply and we got the SUP, we can put it off as long as we need to.
Well, we don't have any regulations in this county.
So we at least need to put it off till we got the regulations done.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
So this just puts a pause on it.
Yeah, but it ties some hands to some people that should be getting information and working on it.
No, we're not tying any hands.
We need.
We're just saying we can't move ahead on the
way
project.
you worded it, though,
that's tying on.
Staff can't even work on it.
You can't move ahead on the project with Blue Stem. That doesn't say you can't move ahead on making regulations. That's two different things.
No, it's not.
Yes, sir.
No, it's not. You're playing with semantics now.
No,
It's not.
we're saying we can move ahead on regulations, but we cannot move ahead with the development with Project Blue Stem until we have these regulations in place.
We're all agreeing on that. We all agree about that.
We can't move ahead with a regulation because we don't have a proposal from Blue Stem. We don't have any proposal. So
We can move ahead with putting regulations for Leavenworth County in place for data centers.
And I think we all agree on that.
And
we're working on
that's-
regulations to say what they can.
You don't agree with regulations?
I agree with regulations, but
That's what we're saying.
But I just disagree with how you're implementing that.
I think the moratorium hinders that.
With the board.
Isn't it logical that this would benefit Cloverleaf if you tell them what the regulations are so that they can propose a plan that follows them?
That's what we're doing.
It just makes sense to have regulations first.
That's exactly what we're doing.
Okay, I guess I need to hear more, Commissioner Dove. What's the issue with it?
I'll have him in a second.
What's the? I mean, what's your objection?
Commissioner, I just answered you.
Are we ready to vote? We have
So
a person.
we're still in discussion.
I don't have discussion. He's done. Who
I'm
else?
done. Okay. Wow.
I'm kind of confused now what you're voting on.
We're voting on a moratorium for 90 days on further movement ahead with the Project Blue Stem. The county staff will not be talking to them until we have regulations in place. At the end of the 90 days, the project we can see where we go from there. But we currently don't have any regulations in place. So there's a motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion?
Mike, I understand what you're saying. I just don't like, and I don't have the information. I don't like the way it was worded, even though I agree with what you're trying to do. I'm not sure I'm in compliant with agreement because I do want to slow down no matter what. So I don't know if we could reword it or vote or however it goes. I'm just not comfortable.
How would you feel comfortable if it was reworded?
I'm not. I want staff to be able to talk and get us more information.
Well, we can get information. We just can't move ahead on the project.
I don't think
we have a project to vote on. There is no project.
There certainly is a project.
No, it's not. There's not a project.
There's nothing that's been in concrete, but we're saying that this would give us a pause while we develop our regulations and get them in place and take a deliberative process. And that's all this is.
Commissioners, if I'm sorry, if I might.
Excuse me, you already got, no, that's not a order.
Is there any more discussion?
No.
Okay, so voting.
Nope.
No.
No.
Someone make another motion.
Yeah.
Word it properly and make another motion.
Is that permissible?
We can't have comments from the audience, but
we can't have a motion from the audience.
They're not made. They didn't make a motion. So, would the board feel? So I feel like the board does not like the word moratorium.
I think
I'm asking for a pause till we develop some regulations, which you started the process today, and this would put a.
Do we have to call it moratorium, or we just have a pause?
Yes, we just had a vote.
That's the same thing.
That's it.
What's the difference?
What's the difference?
Then we can write the rules that we can continue talking to get more information.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I think this conversation is. We need to have the work session next. Then we decide, do we need a moratorium? That's where I'm at.
That's where I'm at.
I mean, we're missing half the information. We had a 6-hour work session, we had to cut it off.
Even if we adopted the moratorium, it wouldn't say that we couldn't move ahead on having a work session.
Yeah.
But
I know.
My concern with the work session is that it starts where it left off last time.
Yeah.
Not having the same groups we already heard, not rehashing the stuff we heard last time. It needs to start where it left off, so we can get the information that was left out last time.
Then we get to figure out whether we need a moratorium.
Right. But that doesn't mean that some of the information that has filled in since that hearing, that we might need more information from Evergy, for example, or we might need more information from Cloverleaf.
And that's why a moratorium right now is a bad idea, because you're hindering all that.
Well, I'm fine with moving ahead with the work session. I personally think that what I fear with not having a moratorium is county staff and the city of Tonganoxie staff is going to continue moving forward with this project, and conversations are going to continue behind the scenes to push this forward. A moratorium would mean a pause, and that's why I am advocating that. However, a work session, certainly we have to do what the majority agrees with here, and certainly a work session is a great idea. But I think we're moving awful fast on this.
I don't want to push. Stephen, how are we doing things behind the scenes? I'm not understanding what that.
Well, you heard the testimony.
Let me finish.
Okay.
How are we doing things behind the scenes when we just had the director of planning and zoning come and give the information that we've been asking for in public, on screen, everyone listening, and getting information that we've been seeking all this time? So how is it behind the scenes?
Okay.
I got to
address that.
Agree with you. I got to just agree with you about anything being done behind the scenes. There's nothing been done behind the scenes.
Has anybody been contacted by people that would like to buy across your land? They would like to have an easement access to your land.
That's public information.
That is what's going on behind the scenes. We're not being told or informed about that. The public does not know that. The people feel like they're being mistreated behind the scenes because they're not being given all the information they need.
Because they're being.
Where are you going to put it?
Right.
No.
And that's the issue. We need an open process. And that's why, in my view, we need to have a little pause till we get these regulations in place.
The opposite of that.
Yes.
Okay, so folks, we can't do it. We gotta. But my stance is we need to get these regulations in place before we move ahead, and that's where I'm at.
Agreed.
Are we having an executive session?
So
when is that? We have an executive.
Commissioners, you did move an item, a funding agreement item. So before we
that's right.
want to make sure.
Meadowlark project.
I don't think we can do that yet. There's a lot we need to find out.
That was the formal board action.
Consider a motion to enter into a cost funding agreement with Western Meadowlark Project Co. LLC to allow the county to receive upfront funding to cover expenses of third-party consultants and incur other related third-party expenses.
So you're wanting to move ahead with the.
I'm just reading the agenda since we moved
is
it
this a
till
motion?
now.
Are you making a motion?
I make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
So this motion is the motion that would move ahead with the
Cost funding agreement for Western Meadowlark.
right for the project to move forward,
For the project, you just said we didn't have a project.
and they will use the positive part of this is that they are paying for the studies. The negative part is it is moving ahead.
We're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
folks,
folks, hold on,
I
let's
just
up there.
want to say one thing. When y'all had a chance to speak publicly, nobody heckled you, nobody interrupted you, we respected your opinions, and we listened. Now the commission is having a conversation, and they continue to be heckled and interrupted. I'm just asking you to let us finish our meeting peacefully so that we can make wise decisions. That's all. I appreciate that.
No, I just think that this is getting ahead of what we're trying to do. I agree with it, but it's not the right time to bring it up. That's my 2 cents on it.
So
Got a motion and a second.
Is there any further discussion? So voting?
No.
No.
I second it. I second it. That's a trick question there. Yes.
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 All right. 3-2. So, is there an executive session needed? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. 1 o'clock budget, Mark.